What up, everybody? You're now tuned into the true definition of a sports fanatic. I'm your host, Brandon Lampley, back today with another live stream. Shout out to all my audio listeners, man. We are back in the barbershop today. We're going to talk a little bit of sports. Got my co-host, Mr. Reid, back with me once again. How you feeling today, sir?
Feeling good, man. Glad to be back. Good to be back talking that chat.
Yeah, man. Yes, sir. Yeah, had a little layoff this weekend, going to chill with some family, man. And one of the things about family is as I gotten older, I realized that there's really not much more important than family. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's really all you got is family. And family isn't a skin tone or even just blood, because there's people who you're not related to who you do consider family. But for those who you consider family and actual family, there's nothing more important than those people.
Yeah, no doubt about that, man. Even if you clash your
Yeah,
dad, uh, go through your family tributes, especially with your sisters and brothers.
Oh, of course, man. One thing I know, agree to disagree and accept people for how they are. Don't try to change them. Hey, you can turn to get your point across, whatever. Just deal with them how you deal with them and call it a day, because at the end of the day, it's family. And regardless of the situation, how you feel about them, a lot of them, I know I could pick up the phone. They could not like me or have a problem, but I could pick up the phone and say, hey, I need XYZ. And I know I can get it done from them. So.
Mhm.
Those are the things that matter, man. But we're gonna talk some sports today. But first and foremost, I want to say another athlete, man. Rest in peace to Marion Barber, man. Marion the Barbarian. I heard this news when as soon as it broke. I think I was on Twitter when the news broke, and I couldn't believe it. They say he was found unresponsive in his apartment, and I think he was only 38 years old, man. That's a young man. I don't think people really understand, because I always hear people call 45-year-old men or 50-year-old men young men, and I didn't understand it. I'm like, man, these dudes 45 and 50, but I understand it now. And 38 is a young man.
Yeah, especially a man who been in shape all his life practically, and he's only been out of the game for what, about 2-3 years, somewhere like that.
I think it's been a minute. I'm trying to remember when he retired.
Oh,
Because I know he came in 2005, and I think his last year. Okay, his last year was 2011, actually. Okay, I thought he retired later than that, but 2011 was his last year.
10 years ago. So yeah.
Yeah, but man, Marion Barber had one of the greatest 2-yard runs I've ever seen in my life. I know you remember that run. They played that run on the loop for years. You'll still see it from time to time. And what made it even better was it was against the Patriots. He was in the end zone, and they couldn't tackle him. Rodney Harrison, Teddy Bruschi, Mark Vrabel. Dude, this defense was great. It was all-time great defense. Couldn't tackle Marion Barber. Yeah, man. So, but rest in peace to him. I don't know what the cause was, but they say his family. I did see where his family said they won't donate his
Yeah.
brain for research for CTE, and got no problem with that. They just want to bury him and pay their respects, and move on. So but rest in peace to Marion Barber. But we'll get into these NBA finals, man. And I had a prediction after game one. I said after game one, as soon as the game finished, I was talking to a buddy and I did a video talking about Ricky Williams. And I said in the video, I said that in game two, I expect the Warriors to blow them out. I said because the series with the Heat is going to catch up with the Celtics eventually. Because hey, it was rust versus rust. The Warriors pretty much rusty. They started out hot and they faded down the stretch. And I said the Celtics were still in that mode where they had just played a few days ago,
Yeah.
so they were ready to go. But I said that's going to catch up with them. And sure enough, that tank looked like it went empty after the second half. I mean, after the first half.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I thought that they used their bench much better than that game one. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that what is his name, Beljango came
Uh-huh.
in. It's the center. I thought Porter, even though he didn't score much, but just it didn't. People underestimate that Peyton is just a great defender, man. He
Yeah.
makes things hard, and then and most of all, Poole played like Poole. I mean, I don't know what happened in game one, but
Yeah.
you know, hitting those 5 threes and that one for about almost 40 feet, man, was just spectacular. And that's the kind of effort, man. I mean, I just think that Steve got to really. I feel that the Warriors has a better overall roster than the Celtics. Obviously, the Celtics is a much better defensive team than the Warriors, but
Yeah.
you got to use Kaminga. You got to use everything you have. You can't just. It ain't. People can say what they want. I still don't think Klay Thompson is what Klay Thompson used to be. I think
Yeah.
either he's working his way back into whatever he used to be, or it may not happen. Who knows? But
Yeah.
you just can't rely on Steph and Clay and not utilize everything you have on that bench. Because I tell you, man, game one, I mean, Boston was taking away things from the Warriors. I mean, that up close, I've never seen a Warrior team lose when they move as well as they do without the basketball and couldn't get separation enough to make an open shot. Basically, that's what it was. Boston played them up so close that
Yeah.
they couldn't get enough separation to get off a shot. Basically, I mean, get off enough shot where they feel comfortable taking a jump shot. And Boston gonna come right back. I'm gonna tell you this: they're gonna come right back when the series resume, and they're gonna get
Yep.
up on them close, and it's gonna be up to Steve Kerr. You gotta utilize what you have. You gotta when you got a series like this, you gotta take advantage of you don't know what a matchup mismatch is until you put the players on the floor and see it. You know,
Yep.
we don't know what Kaminga can do. I mean, you're not gonna see much if he's only getting 3 minutes a game. But you got to have a big. This ain't the Western Conference. This ain't Dallas. You know, you
Yeah.
you, you got to match up. And I said this earlier today. The one thing I don't want the Warriors to do, don't play a zone. Zone won't work on this. It definitely won't work on Jaylen Brown. Don't play zone. Play
Yeah.
man straight up. Don't if you're gonna play zone, empty the bench. Keep Looney in the game. Bring in Kaminga and just play them straight up. But you that zone, that's just it's not gonna work against this Celtic team. Not the way they shoot.
Yeah. And Jason Tatum isn't going to stay like this for the whole series.
Yeah.
Eventually, he's going to get his and he's going to wake up. They've done it's been partly him, but I think it's more Warriors than it has been Tatum. I think they've had whatever the plan was. I think they've executed it very well. But Tatum, when his shot hasn't fallen, I think didn't he have? I know he had at least a double in game one. The shot wasn't going in, so he just started passing it and throwing it. And he started making plays. So if he's able to get the shot to fall and continue to be a playmaker, I mean, who knows?
Another thing, man, I I want to see. I really feel Wiggins is a good player. I I feel obviously, he's being praised for being this good defender, but I just think he's got so much more to
Yes,
give that he's just. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it just want to
I
be part of the
I, I
team.
I think I think Wiggins has Jimmy Butler potential.
Yeah, I do
I think
too.
he does. Yeah, I think he has Jimmy Butler potential.
It just seems like he plays so much in reserve. Sometimes I think he only going to
Yeah,
score after you get an offensive putback or a rebound. And I just think he's got so
yeah,
much. I mean, I know he's this personality that he's not an outgoing guy. He's never going to demand nothing. He's not that type of person. He wasn't that type of person in Minnesota, and he's definitely not that type here with the Golden State Warriors, where he demands the ball. When you're a third option, he's possibly the third option. Well, third may be the fourth option if Poole is on the floor with him. But I look at him, man, and I just say, man, this kid could do so much more. He could be like he could really
Yeah.
take over a game if he wanted to. And it just seems like he don't want to. He just want to be a
Yeah.
role player, and he's just making
Yep.
himself be a role player when he got so much more talent to be a stud on a good team. And it's I think the difference between the Golden State now and the Golden State 4 or 5 years ago and them classic battles against Cleveland, I don't know if they can win a championship just based on Steph Curry. I think in order for them to win, they gotta get a good balanced effort from at least 7 to 8 guys on that team. And I say this, man. I'm talking about this today on the practice field, man. Sometimes I don't know what Draymond does. I mean,
Oh
I
man,
literally saw this guy run
I was
over
about to
a
bring that
guy,
up. Hmm.
run through him. I mean, it ain't running over; it just ran through the guy. I saw a
Yes.
guy that was off balance, and Draymond had the whole floor. He didn't have to go anywhere near the guy, and he just went through him. This is the second instance, and
Yes.
it's a dude with him and his guard that is just. I mean, I'm looking like, man, this look like football. This don't look like basketball. But then, then you look back and then you say, man, he gave them an edge that they didn't have in game one.
Right.
The Boston hit you and Draymond hit you back.
Yes. So, hey, I'm about to read off a tweet that Nick Wright from First Things First on Fox. He said all playoffs long, Draymond has been paying this one free throw tax to get a technical early, and this just have carte blanche to act however he wants the rest of the game. I've been talking about it for weeks, but until the ref change how they officiate him, it's very smart by him. And I think that it is a ploy because he does know. Because once he gets that other technical, they're least likely to give him another one because he's going to be thrown out. And so it does kind of give him leeway to act the fool. Somebody told they were talking about Draymond. They say, I know Rasheed Wallace watches Draymond's and he thinks, what the F? How? How does he get away with this?
Yeah,
Rasheed used to get texts for looking at refs the wrong way.
I know,
So
man.
I watched the play. I watched the play. No lie. Just what you're talking about. Steph gets the ball. He's coming up the court. Draymond literally is pushing guys and staying in front of him. And he's like an offensive lineman and he's checking guys in the chest like this. And Steph gets the shot off and hits the three. And I'm like, yo, he's literally playing football out here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like, you want to be a provoker. I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't think it's basketball, to be honest. I don't think you can just. I know you have in your path, and if somebody proceeds your path, then you have the right to proceed. But I mean, a clear path foul is a clear path foul, man. You can't run over somebody who's already in position. And I done seen clear path fouls on this guy with the official like right in front of him,
Yes.
and you can't. It's nothing about follow through. If he's in position, then you can't run him over. I mean, I don't care
Right.
what it is. You can't run it over. And as a defender, it's your responsibility to hold your ground. If you get a charging call, if you move away, then you won't get the call. So I see Draymond.
Yep.
It's almost like he's provoking a fight more than defending. And it's like
Yeah.
he's the only guy that I ever seen in a game. If you can, I can read lips sometimes on my TV, and this guy is literally cussing at the referee on a call.
Yes. I've seen it. I've seen it. Shoot, his altercation with Jaylen Brown, he got mixed up with Jaylen Brown. It's just him being an irritant. He tried to pull his pants down. He shook at the pants. Yeah, that's him being an irritant. If the refs don't check that early, he's gonna feel like he could do it all game, and that's exactly what he's been doing.
He just seemed like a player out of control, and it's like nobody, and not even the coach. There's nobody on the Warriors bench that can reel him in and calm him down. Basically, they might have to call a timeout to calm him down, but I like the Warriors. I think they play a great style of basketball, but sometimes I shake my head. I say, man, this is not basketball this guy doing, man.
No.
I mean, it's like bully ball, It's like, and the thing is, you can't force your path. I mean, if the guy in position to play defense, you can't run over him. It's like, I respect the game enough to know that, hey, if I was rooting for a team and the guy on the opposite team did my player like that, then no matter how it looks ugly for basketball. It's not the way the game's supposed to be played. And I think a lot of times this guy getting away with things because the officials don't want to say we had an imprint on the game when we throw this guy out of the game. If you go back to the Cleveland series, he got thrown out basically for the same stuff.
Yes, same stuff.
And what it was, the game 7, he didn't play. I think he got tossed out in that game 6. And game 7, they didn't. The Warriors lost it because they didn't have him.
Yeah. So. No, he. I think it was game 5. Yeah, he was it game 5? Because he played game 6 and 7. He missed game 5. That's what it was. Okay. Yeah, he missed game 5, and then he came back. And they played games 6 and game 7 because people always talk about that. The Warriors only lost that series because Draymond got put out. I said, dude, he played in 2 of the games down the stretch, and you still didn't beat him. I mean, come on, man. No, but people, I've seen a cut up of Draymond on defense, and literally Draymond is doing nothing. Yeah. He's doing nothing. He's standing there, look like he got cinder blocks for feet. As Boogie McFarland says, he looks like an iron deer on the lawn. That's what he looks like.
Well, he need to hit those layups, man, because he sure missed a lot of bunnies in game 1.
Yes, yeah, he did.
So, yeah, what did he shoot? Let me see what was this.
Yeah. Now I expect the Celtics to come back because I think they're going to back to Boston now. I expect at least Tatum to wake up and have I don't think he'll go for 35, 36 points. But I expect him to at least have maybe 25 points or so. Probably, let's say 25, 7 and 7. I expect Jason Tatum to have a good game. Jaylen Brown as well. They shore up their defense, get back defensive, and I don't expect a blowout, but the Celtics, it should be a close game in the fourth quarter. Back and forth, battle back and forth, and it's going to come down to who's going to hit the most shots in those last 4 to 5 minutes.
Well, in order for the Warriors to win, they got to get a balanced attack, man. He's got to utilize the bench, and they got to play like they did last night in the third quarter. They got to play like that in the fourth quarter in Boston.
Yeah.
They gotta come out firing, man. Because I don't think this team can really guard Jaylen Brown.
No, they can't.
From the perimeter to drives in the lane, I think he's a bad matchup. And Tatum, if he's on, you might as well say he's unguardable. But anybody is unguardable if they making 35-foot shots. Contested or uncontested. Because the one thing I think the problem with the Warriors in this series, if he limits his bench, is that they're not big enough for the Celtics. And the Celtics know it. So that's why he's got to play guys like Belginga and, Kumunga. I mean, he's got to play guys like
Yeah.
that who's big enough, who can run the floor and rebound. Because if you don't play them, they're gonna get out rebounded, and then Boston will get second chance shots. And then let's face it, Boston is a more physical team than the Warriors, and they're bigger. And you got that 1-2 punch. You know, it ain't all about making threes. If you can't make them, and then you missing shots, and they getting back, and you can't get your defense set, then you losing possessions. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why I say it's urgent for Steve Kerr to use his bench, man. I mean, this is a series. It's not Dallas. You know, you don't. You know, Dallas. You
Yeah.
have to worry about that with the um, Mavericks, but man, this Boston team played basketball like back in the '90s.
Yes. Yeah,
They
they
take the
do.
ball out your hand. They can go through screens, and they're up on you. You don't have. That the first thing I noticed in this series. If you go back and watch how Dallas defended the Warriors, where the Warriors had enough space that they can maneuver and they can do all that. They can have enough space between the defender and getting their shot up. So
Yeah.
it wasn't no lunging and you know with the Dallas just lunged to try to block it. But with Boston played defense where they try to take the ball out of your hands. They're up on you close enough that they're gonna make you think twice about passing it to Steph and you know on the perimeter. Those perimeter scores are not just standing there, and they're not going to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and you brought up something earlier about ball movement. You know, we always praise the Warriors for ball movement, but I, their ball movement, the way the Celtics play defense, like you said, it is very hard to move the ball because one of the things they did in Game 1 is they saw it was evident that nobody else was going to beat you, but pretty much Steph Curry.
Yeah,
So we got to keep the ball out of his hands, and
yeah,
that's exactly what they did. Not
uh,
many people can deny Steph the ball and be able to keep the ball out of his hands the way they did. And it was collective effort. There's not like this one step stopper that they had. It was a rotation of guys.
yeah. And you know what, man? I think the thing in the series is getting underplayed a little bit. Boston's coach is pretty good, man. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, he don't attract a whole lot of attention, but he makes great adjustments and he probably got them. I mean, they are. I mean, I've seen some defenses this season, man, but I mean, they like a suction cup. They funnel you in, you know.
mm-hmm.
And even for a team that moves the ball as well as Golden State, you don't see Boston getting beat down the floor. Even for a physical team with bigs, they get back to get their defense set on you, and so that
Yeah,
tells me they're athletic, they physical, and they get up on you enough that make you feel uncomfortable to take jump shots. And when you got a combination like that, man, a lot of times that'll wear a team like a Western Conference team. It'll wear you down because you can't get a lot of open space. Even when you try to space the floor, they're not allowing you to space the floor. Even with your ball movement, you're spreading, and you still can't get you know you can't spread them out and beat them in angles and ways to the basket. And that's a great defensive
yep,
team. That's like playing on the string, man. They covering the middle, they covering the top of the top of the front court, and they're not getting beat on the back door. And
yeah, yeah.
you
Like we talked about it before. Hey, they call it the chain link defense. It's like every
mm-hmm,
defender is linked to a chain. You know.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's
and
great
almost like an umbrella. Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, yep,
yeah. So man, I'm looking forward to Game 3 because I think this is going 7 games. I don't
yeah.
this
I do
I
too.
said the Warriors in 6. This
Yeah,
is going 7 games.
yeah, I do too, man. And I don't know. I picked the Warriors. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Hey, my uncle said he said the Celtics gonna get him. He said Game 2 was Game 2. He said the Celtics is gonna get him.
what concerns me about the Warriors is I don't Tatum.
What's going on? Z jail? Was that Z? Is it Z jail? Z jail R? What's going on, man? Appreciate you for tuning in. But
Well,
go ahead.
I mean, Tatum just, he had a bad game in game one and looked great in game two. And just the distance that they take their jump shots, man, it's like if you got a guy who can crash the boards and still make jump shots, which is Jalen, and then you just got an orchestrator, like, I mean, I don't know, man. I thought that Celtics would have some offensive struggles just to keep up with the scoring pace of the Warriors. And now it's looking to me like, man, the Warriors got to do everything in the world to keep up with not not game two, not in that third quarter, but I don't know. I never thought the Celtics as a high scoring offensive team. I've
Yeah,
always thought of them this season, last season, as a great defensive team that take away what you like to do, and they hinged on their defensive strength. And, if you go back to the Miami Heat series, it wasn't like the Celtics was out shooting them and things like that. It's just that they just wore them down. It's like
yeah,
but Jimmy Butler was there with a Miami Heat only scoring threat. He could get it up, get his shots, and they didn't have enough to, support him. But
yeah, yeah. Hey, help may be on the way for Jimmy because I told you I seen Zach LaVine and now Donovan Mitchell is supposedly on the radar of the Miami Heat. So they identified the issue and help is on the way. Speaking of the Heat, Pat Riley had some, I would say, it's a not criticism, but a critique of Kyle Lowry. And he talked about how, Kyle Lowry is basically out of shape. And, whether it's time from the injury and what he did or did not do during that time, but it was very clear he's heavy. He's never been just a, a very muscular athlete. He's been more, and he's never been really pudgy either, but he's never been overly muscular. But now he was pudgy in that last series.
yeah, he was. No doubt about it. It's the truth.
Oh yes, it is the truth. Hey, that's why we talked about that Jermaine O'Neal and how he said, dude, I'm a grown man and I'm standing in front of my pantry staring at the Oreos, wanting to eat them and can't because I play for the Heat. He said because their restrictions on body fat was so stringent that he didn't want to change anything, so he had to limit his eating. And he just wasn't happy, so he had a chance to play with LeBron, Chris Bosh, and D Wade, and he was like, you know what? Nah, I got to get out of here.
You know what, man? Let me preach a little.
Go ahead.
I read this Fort Lauderdale story, and I think teams. I like. Some people don't like it. I like the way my Miami Heat is structured. I like the fact that Pat Riley presence on this organization is like grip lock.
Yes.
People on the outside don't understand, but if you within that organization, when Pat Riley speaks, people listen. And I know he ain't the head coach, but he might as well be the head coach. And I was reading this Fort Lauderdale story, man, and it's like Pat Riley had his I guess you could call it the end of the season press conference.
Oh yeah, I know where you going. I saw that. I heard what he said. It was good.
So he's saying, I like Pat Riley because number one, Pat don't bite his tongue. He gonna, hey, whether you like it, if you making $14 million a year, which is what the Lakers need. They need a guy like Pat Riley who just tell it like it is. This is what we need from you, and this is what you better work on before you come back here for training camp.
Yeah.
So he spoke at this press conference. He said, yeah, Tyler Hero, you need strides on the defensive end. Bam. Need more aggressiveness on the offensive end. Duncan Robinson and Max Strus not settling for being solely 3-point shooters.
Calling it like he see it.
and Kyle Lowry, which is what you said, 36 years old, finished with a
Out of shape.
hamstring, never quite in the type of conditioning that Riley has stressed during his 27-season stewardess of the franchise. And he's telling them you got to have somebody in your organization, not your head coach. One thing I think when the head coach say things like this, there's always could be repercussions. A player can revolt and all that.
Yeah.
When you got a guy like Pat Riley who done won championships, he's sitting. I call it sitting in the catbird seat. He's like up here.
Yeah. He's the guy.
And that means he's untouchable. He don't give a damn about your complaints.
Right.
Because if you complain too much, he gonna ship you out. And that's what Philadelphia needs. That's what the Lakers need. That they need, even when LeBron was there, Pat said things that this is what we need to do. Because LeBron wanted to fire the head coach. And Pat Riley said, nope, he ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that story where they say D Wade had to have a come to Jesus moment with him and pull him to the side and say, hey, listen, if you manage to somehow get Spoelstra out of here, Pat Riley comes out of the office. That's not what you want. No. If you think Spo is a problem, you're going to hate Pat Riley. He say, this is not what you want, man. Leave Spoelstra in his spot.
Yeah, I can go back to Byron Scott days when he used to talk about the practices when Riley was the coach of the Lakers, when they had 2 days and they'll go to the beach and they think, oh, yeah, we're going to have this nice day on the beach. And he'd be running them on the beach, on Malibu Beach, and they running not 1 hour, not 2 hours, 3 hours. They had 3-hour practices. Wow. And it was like, okay, so you want to be back-to-back champs. Okay, well, this is what it's going to take.
Yeah, 3 hours. This is how it starts.
Yeah, this is how it's going to start. Even Shaq, he came to camp one year out of shape with the heat, and Pat liked to kill him. But I'm telling you, man, this is what, like that mess going on in Utah that, well, hopefully that is getting cleared out. But if that was a situation with Pat Riley, that would have been cleared up 2 years ago.
Right. And that's our next topic. We about to get into that. And so, well, Pat Riley, did you hear what he said when they asked him about potential retirement?
Oh, what'd he say?
He said, I'm 77 years old, and right now I can do more push-ups than you. I ain't going nowhere.
Well, that's unbelievable, man. Let's pause that for 1 second. Kareem had his 75th birthday celebration. I saw it on Twitter, I believe. I did not know that Kareem is only 2 years younger.
I didn't know that either. I didn't know that either, man. That shocked me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
About that today. I was thinking about that yesterday when I saw it. I say, well, doggone, he's 75. So how old is Pat Riley? And then you said it. So he's only 2 years older than the captain.
Yeah. Craziness, man. So, but our next topic is what you just mentioned, is the Utah Jazz. And when I say that the band is playing as the ship is going down, that's exactly what's going on in Utah right now.
Yeah.
So it says Donovan Mitchell surprised and disappointed, sources say, as Quinn Snyder leaves the Utah Jazz. So if you don't know, Utah Jazz head coach Quinn Snyder resigned, and now they're actively, aggressively searching for the new head coach. So it says, amid the reverberation of Quinn Snyder's departure after 8 seasons as the Utah Jazz head coach, all-star guard Donovan Mitchell is described as unsettled, unnerved, and wondering what it means for the franchise's future, sources told ESPN on Sunday. Mitchell considered Snyder a significant part of his reasoning for committing to a 5-year maximum contract in 2020, and Snyder's decisions to step away on Sunday has left Mitchell surprised and disappointed. He say Mitchell remains fond of Snyder and accepts his reasons for stepping down, but Mitchell is spending the immediate aftermath of Snyder's decision trying to process what the coach's loss mean in the larger scope of the organization and himself. Utah is expected to commence a coaching search immediately. Snyder had a 623 winning percentage over the past 6 seasons, third best in the NBA according to ESPN Stats and Info. He was 372 and 264 in his 8 seasons with Utah. Mitchell, a 2-time All-Star, reached the Western Conference playoffs in each of his 5 seasons and became the first guard since Allen Iverson to average 20 points in each of his 5 campaigns, according to ESPN Stats. Snyder's the second winningest head coach in franchise history behind Jerry Sloan, had forged a strong relationship with Mitchell and co-star Rudy Gobert. Let's see. Okay, just talking about other details. But also, this report came out about Snyder stepping down. I had told you. Then I saw the report about Donovan Mitchell being unnerved, unsettled because he thought he was going to be there, and the reason he committed to the franchise because he thought Snyder would be a part of it. Hey, the man say he's leaving, and whatever, regardless of how you feel about it, he said he's okay with the reasons, but it wouldn't matter no way whether you disagreed or agreed. That's that man's life, and it's his to live. But also after that, they said they will be aggressive on the trade market, which means somebody's got to go. Now, whether that's Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert, but this team won't be the same going in the next year. I expect this to be a different looking team. Personally, I would ship out Donovan Mitchell and keep Gobert. Because I think I can, Donovan Mitchell is a great player. I take nothing from him, but they can't coexist. So if I'm going to keep one, where's another Gobert? I don't think you're going to be able to find another Gobert. Now, Donovan Mitchell's don't grow on trees, but it's guards that I can go get that can drop buckets for me.
Yeah. Well, I did some research. Rudy Gobert is owed $85 million over the next 2 years of his contract. Mitchell is $67 million over 2 years. They got to get rid of one of them because that's that's a lot of money tied up in 2 players. And the thing is this, man. Mitchell, for whatever it is never going to forgive Gobert for giving him the virus. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's the white elephant in the room. He blames Rudy for getting the COVID. Yeah. And that's been the problem for the last 3 years, that it's not going away. And we said this on the show 3 weeks ago. I never thought that Quinn Snyder was a guy who could bridge the gap between Gobert and Mitchell. And if you can't bridge the gap between your 2 top players, then it's a faction team. You got your Gobert group and you got the Mitchell group, and you got this coach in the middle who, if you've seen some pictures of Snyder, man, Snyder is I call him a cuckoo, but he's a guy who's so engaged with the game. And you can have a head coach in the NBA who just he tunes out everything other than this is what we need against Dallas. This is what we need against the Suns. This is the film watching. This is he's an X and O guru. He's a gym rat. But sometimes when you got a coach and the only thing they focusing on is the X and O's and they don't see anything else, then it's hard for that coach to have a connection to the players. And I think that's what happened. This guy might be, to be honest, he might be one of the smartest X and O's guys in the league, Quinn Snyder. Yeah. But it doesn't mean anything if you're gonna let the outside noise come into the locker room and it festers And then when it's time to cleanse it or get things better, he doesn't have a voice because he's never done it before. So they don't respect him in that regard. They love him as a coach because he's a great X and O. He put him in position to win, and he can come up and get on that chalkboard and timeouts, put in timeout plays, and they work. But it takes a hell of a lot more than that to be an NBA coach. Because if you don't address that problem initially when it happened, like 2 years ago, then that's what this team to me looked like to be. There's a Gobert group and there's a Mitchell group. And it just, and the in between is just a team of clashing. And it took away from everything that they have as a strength. It took it away. And I believe this was a team, when things didn't go right, they start finger pointing. They finger pointing between the two. And Snyder was just not that coach who can say, like a Pat Riley, enough is enough. If you guys can't, play together, live together, then I'm going to ship both of you out.
Yeah. A locker room is easily split.
It is.
Locker rooms are, and it
split for a while.
It's throughout all sports. I remember the Eagles. One of the things that plagued the Eagles, especially when Terrell Owens was there, is that they painted Terrell Owens as the problem. But the one thing the more details come out about that, the more people tell their stories, is the locker room was split. You had half the team behind Terrell and the other half behind Donovan. Everybody wasn't on Donovan's side because a lot of guys talk about how Donovan acted in that and how much he could have been better. I know Stephen A. has called Donovan out, and how he one of the things, the issues they had was when it was time for Brian Westbrook to get his money, he was vocal about it in the media saying that they need to pay him. But then when T.O. had his issue, he told T.O., oh, no, I don't talk about contracts and guys deserving money and all that. I don't do that. But then you turn around and did it for Brian Westbrook. Yeah. And, and that just added fuel to the fire. One story, and this is a little off topic, but I saw where a report from 2017, I think, the Seattle Seahawks was the only team to bring in Colin Kaepernick for a workout that offseason. That was his last offseason in the league. And the reasons they didn't sign him is because they thought, because of his popularity and what was currently going on, that he may have caused dysfunction in the locker room and split the locker room. Yeah. So what that told me is that guys were already kind of out on Russell Wilson. And if they had brought in Colin Kaepernick, and Colin can play, people try to act like Colin was just terrible quarterback. Colin could play. Colin comes in, guys automatically gonna jump on that ship. All right, yeah, play Colin. That's what we want to see. And Seattle didn't want any parts of that. And one of the underrated skills of coaches, besides the X's and O's, which is great. You could draw up stuff, you could make adjustments, but Phil Jackson is known more for his managing of egos than he is for X's and O's. Yeah. And that's, I think, that's an underrated talent that head coach has, be able to manage. I'm talking about big egos that can't fit in the room together. He can manage them.
Well, he managed Dennis Rodman, so that
man, that
Dennis Rodman, who, if my memory recall, was a guy who went to, I think, Vegas.
Man, yeah, he say I need a vacation. And Mike said, you let this dude go. We not gonna see him. We're not gonna see him no more. He said, "Well, can you vacation in 2 days? Yeah, 2 days." They say it was 5 days later. They had to go there and drag him out of Vegas.
But it took him 2 days to find out where he was at with Carmen Electra. Yeah. Can you imagine that? Just think that this the series of just Steph Curry can't be found.
Right.
For 2 days, they do practice between games. You know that, right? They do practice. They travel. 1 day is travel. The next day is you have the shoot around. It ain't much of a practice, but it is a practice. And you have the availability with the media. And this says, man, I got to get a vacation.
Epic, man.
But you
Epic.
know
That's
one more
why.
thing, though?
Uh-huh.
I'm opinionated. I think Mitchell is the problem to be with this Utah situation.
I've been leaning that
I
way
think
for a
he's the
minute.
problem. I think he's
Yeah.
younger. He's a little younger than Gobert. I think he's very impressionable. I think that I think he's sort of been an instigator to this whole controversy with Rudy. And
Yeah.
like you say, I mean, you can get shooters in it. You can make a trade or you can get
Yeah.
some shooters. You can find, but I do agree with you. Rudy is a one of a kind guy. You know,
Yes,
you
he
need
is.
a rim protector, and you need a guy with his height and rebound and all the things, a post score. So, and I think if anybody go, and it might be even Mitchell request that he want to go somewhere else. And he's got 67 million left in that contract over 2 years. He'll find a taker. You
Yeah.
know, it wouldn't be a problem finding a team.
Yeah.
But
A contender at that.
yep. So,
Yeah. Somebody go get him.
but I knew this was not when they got when they got knocked out of the playoffs. What by the Mavs? I say, yep, change is on the way. And really, if you really look at it, the last 3 years, they underperformed. You know.
Yeah. They have. Yeah, they have. They underperformed, man. So, but I said that too. I said I think Mitchell is the biggest issue. I
Yeah.
said it's just the way some of the things that have been said, his attitude, sometimes the way he carries himself, and then when I saw that cut up of him, Rudy having a favorable matchup down low, and Donovan is just dribbling the air out the ball, playing hero ball.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, it's an issue there. It's an issue because now this isn't it. Being a basketball player, taking emotion out of it, you make the basketball play. But it's obvious that he sees Rudy. He's like, that's that dude that gave me COVID.
Yep. And that's the way it's been. That's the way it's been for the last 3 seasons. That he's not gonna forget. He's not gonna forget that Rudy gave him COVID. And another thing, my friend Dale Demps, I guess he'll be looking for a job because he was the assistant on on Snyder's staff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
I don't know, man.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it shakes out. I expect some moving and shaking because they did say that they are going to be aggressive on the trade market. So I'll be looking for that blockbuster.
That means
now let's get into
our number. That's what that means.
Yeah. So let's get on this last basketball topic and say we wanted to talk about this right here. And I remember when I saw it on Twitter, I said, "Oh yeah, we definitely got to talk about this." So it says Kevin Durant says Stephen A. Smith, other media members ruined the NBA. So he said the war between Brooklyn's net star Kevin Durant and the NBA media continued this week in a series of tweets stemming from, of course, something Stephen A. Smith said on ESPN First Take. And for those who don't know, Stephen A. and Kevin Durant specifically have history. I mean, they've been going back and forth for years now. I mean, he's addressed Kevin directly on shows and like making little threats to him and stuff. And of course, KD has been tweeting about him, saying stuff about him. So this back and forth between those two is getting annoying at this point because it's like, dude, just let sleeping dogs lie and go on about your business. But see, Durant took offense when Smith said Michael Jordan changed the game of basketball for the worse because of how he individualized the sport. He said Smith argued the NBA focused more on players rather than teams after Jordan's ascension, which negatively changed the dynamic of the game. He said Michael Jordan is responsible as much as anybody for changing the game for the worse. He was so phenomenal that the NBA marketed the individual. The audience gravitated towards the individual, and the game became a bit more individualized. What I'm saying is you were thinking team until Jordan elevated to another level. And from Jordan, then you had the Kobe's and the Vince Carters and others that came along thereafter, and the individualization of the sport, particularly because of the money that came with it, became more of a focal point. So we're gonna speak on this real quick, and then I'll finish. We'll finish the rest of it. But this right here, let's say this is true. that they focused on individuals and they focused on stars. But you know what they focused on? They focused on the money. This is about money, Stephen A. It was always about the money. They're going to do what makes the money. They saw people like individual stars, and it's just not basketball. It's every sport. That's why I got Aaron Donald in the background and not the whole team of the Rams. It's individuals. Hey, you got people. LeBron has fans, just LeBron fans. They follow him wherever you go. They're not a team. They're not an NBA fan. They're not a Lakers fan. They're not a Cleveland fan. They're not a Miami Heat fan. They are LeBron James fans. And the NBA knew that. And so that's why they want to focus on that. Now, it changed the game for the worse. The game is more profitable than it's ever been. So how can you say it changed the game for the worse? What's your take on that?
Well, let's start with Stephen A's comment. You know, um, he's partially wrong in that assessment, because if you really want to think about it, the NBA started a marketing push because if you wanted to watch the NBA Finals in 1980, 1978, it was tape delayed because they wasn't getting enough penetration. So he's talking about marketing. Marketing by the NBA started with Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. You know, that's when it became East against the West, Boston against Lakers, and that was a marketing genius on David Stern's point, because they had to do it. You know, I mean, you're talking about the biggest two stars that come out of college basketball at the same time, and you got one that went on the East Coast and the other one went to the West Coast, and then you know they they played in the NCAA championship game in '79, and then their careers patterned with each other. So that's when they used their muscle of the marketing. And then Michael Jordan was he came a couple of years after that. But if you want to talk about him just changing this, what do you say, hurting the game? I don't, I don't think that has anything to do with hurting the game. I think what had to happen, because the NBA was in the '80s was a game portrayed as drugs permeated the NBA during that time frame. It was a whole lot of problems, and a whole lot of people were turned off by the game. I mean, basically, I mean they're not paying money to go see guys, light it up, and the style of play was pretty bad too. So I don't like when Stephen A. said that, okay, well, they market it as an individual. They had to market it, because if they didn't market Magic and Bird, if those two players hadn't came at that time, it may not have been an NBA.
Yeah.
Because they were hemorrhaging money, And like I said, I was a kid. I was in high school. If you wanted to watch the finals, it came on after the news. It was tape delayed. The game is all it just ended. But when we got a chance to watch those games in the finals, I'm not talking about playoffs. I'm talking about the NBA finals. When Magic scored 42 points against Philadelphia in that finals, that was tape delayed in Jacksonville. That was not live. The game was not live. The game came on after the news. So they had to do that type of marketing out of necessity, not because they wanted to. And this is the biggest problem I have with all of this. I mean, one thing here, I have to call it straight. Kevin Durant got to stop being soft-hearted and stop worrying about what people say about him.
Yeah.
Hey, we live in a world, man. You're a professional athlete, and you're gonna get your praise, and you're gonna take your hits. And for you to just be so sensitive about what people being said about you is just ludicrous. I mean, you got to be bigger than that. I mean, you
Yeah.
you one of the best players that ever played a game. Whether it's Stephen A. or whoever or whatever, that never gonna take away from his impact on the game. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, he went to the wrong team. Maybe he should have stayed in Golden State. But that's what it is. I mean, you go back on the history of this game. They said the same thing about Wilt Chamberlain. Oh yeah, he couldn't win big in L.A. He left Philly, went to L.A. and didn't win any more than if he would have stayed in. That's the conversation that you have in sports. And all this, well, one thing I don't like about professional athletes is when they see something they don't like or they see a report that came out. So their ammunition is, we ain't gonna talk to him no more. We gonna he asked me for an interview request. I don't want to talk to him. And I think it's childish. I think it's like you're not speaking directly to the reporter in the first place. You speaking to those fans who buy those tickets to help you have the salary that you make, because it's not just the reporter. Now there are reporters gonna throw stuff in there, negative and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to talk to somebody that you can't trust. But if you speak in groups and the reporter happened to be there, you still act, it's almost like you're talking to the reporter. Okay, so that means you can't control the narrative. It's the NBA, NFL, and you're a professional athlete, and you're going to be asked questions, and some of those questions you may not like. But all
Yeah.
this, oh well, I ain't gonna talk to Stephen A. and all that. That is just, I mean, come on, man. West. That's why they call it professional sports, not amateur.
Yeah. That's
And
exactly it,
these
man.
guys
That's
got to
exactly it.
stop having tit tats. I watched that whole segment on Get Up or whatever it's called on ESPN that morning, and
Mhm.
it was like high school. It was like a feud between two high school buddies, and
Yeah.
one got to get the last word, and it's all on national TV. I mean, it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
This is something where you
Childish at this point.
get on the telephone, tell your side what you like and don't like, and he get on his side and tell his side. But all this media and this Twitter, this and going back and forth, this and have the nerve, even Stephen A. I mean, this ain't professional to tell the world that I don't. Well, I'm gonna say this. You know, I don't need to talk to Kevin Durant. I don't. I don't have to put in a request to interview him. I'm still gonna be on this show, and I can say whatever I want. As long as it's in the constraints of the basketball and not personal. I'm not going into
Hmm.
personal. I can speak. Well, we know your job. I mean, we don't have to explain your job to the world. We know what your job is, and just do your job. It don't have to be a personal conflict and all it. And another thing that I'm pissed off about the whole thing in the NBA, we gotta. And this was addressed a little bit because I like the way I can't think of his name right now, but I like what he said. Just because you are an NBA player, former NBA player, because existing NBA player, doesn't
Hmm.
say that you the only expert of the game. You know,
Yeah.
you know, this is what's killing sports right now. We got so many experts because they played and because they still want to get the glory of being a professional athlete, that they praise so much that you are in a whole different profession. It's called being an analyst on national TV. At
Yeah.
least train yourself to be on national TV. So when you ask the question, that you asking something that's gonna draw a response, so that you're telling us something that we don't know. When you ask a question to the but athlete out there in the place, and you asking, well, how did it feel to win? I mean, what the hell? What do you think he's gonna say?
Right. And if we're being
He said, "Well, how
it,
does it feel
yeah,
the one they win?" What is he going to say? Oh, it feels good. And I mean, come on, give me something that adds to the conversation instead of just,
right.
a name is great. Shaq is great. He was a great basketball player. To my opinion, I don't think he's a great analyst.
Right. I mean, if we're being honest about that, and I was just thinking about this when you said that, former players, they act like they're the holy grail when it comes to talking ball because they played and all this. But let's be honest about it. You're not that much of an expert on the ball being bounced today because you're not in the game today. The
Yeah.
game is different from when Shaq played. And you could tell when he talks about it and the things he say about it and the way they criticize the players today. Yes, your time is up, sir. That time is over. It's not here no more. The game is not the same as it once was. And your criticism of the way players operate today, that's just what they do today. Hey, that's why they jumped down James Worthy's throat when he brought up that stuff about time all they do is tweet, lift weights, and practice threes. They say, hey, well, you and Magic Johnson was running choo-choos at halftime. I mean, come on, man. Let's be honest. So the more I told you, the more I hear them, a lot of them talk, man. I don't want him to
And
talk.
players can't do nothing about the era they in. And they're in an era where they're playing a style of basketball, and you got to play to the style of basketball. You can't go out and score 60 points and 63 points, and you can't go in the lane and knock a guy across his head and expect that you're not going to get technical. I mean, it's a different style of play, and
Yeah,
you got to play. If it's a different style of play, then the level of play is going to be different. So you can't, all this generational and all these athletes come on, and it's like, you remember when we won the title? And I say, man, stop being stop being an analyst, and you're talking about. I mean, you got to know who your audience is now too. You
yeah,
can't go back to 1993 and expect that the people that's watching the show today knows what the hell you're talking about when someone wasn't even born in 93. So you basically
yeah,
talking to a generation that wasn't even around back in the 80s and in the 90s. I mean, so they're not interested in your past glory. I mean, it's like, man, like I saw Shaq. He wore his ring the other night. Okay, that's good. But do you think you need to wear a big old ring like that on the what that got to do with the Warriors and the Celtics?
yeah. Right. So yeah, same. But let's finish this up. So Kevin Durant's response, he said he refuted the idea and instead suggested a tweet on Thursday that media personalities like Smith, Skip Bayless, and Shannon Sharp actually changed the game for the worse, not the players. Say my theory is that guys like Steve, Skip, and Shannon have changed the game for the worse. Players like Steven and Michael can only push the game forward. Steph, he's talking about Steph. To my players like Stephen and Michael can only push the game forward. He said that ignited a series of reply tweets from other fans and journalists. The first being, of course, Smith himself. The ESPN analyst played the "We Are Legion" card by claiming there are thousands more media personalities like himself who are not going away. That I agree with. It ain't going away, KD. All the players who they may agree with KD and say, "Oh yeah, it's this." This was a true statement by Stephen A. Smith. He said, "News for you, KD. We ain't going any damn place. For every Stephen A. Smith, Skip, and Shannon Sharp, and others, there's thousands more coming down the pike. We're not going away. We multiply. Sorry." So it's Eddie Johnson, the color analyst for the Phoenix Suns, disagreed with Smith's argument, but responded to Durant's tweet by calling today's athletes too damn sensitive. To that, Durant responded that media members are actually the ones who are too sensitive and can't take what y'all dish out. So say Eddie Johnson say, I disagree with Stephen A's take, but he has the right to state his opinion because of one reason. He has put in damn work. I will be honest, I can't stand those other two mentioned, but they are putting in work. Athletes today are too damn sensitive and focus on comments, negative comments. And Kevin Durant, of course, say, these media members are sensitive. As soon as an athlete disagrees with these outlandish hot takes, y'all take it as a personal shot at your character. LOL, it's insane. Y'all can't take what y'all dish out, but it's the athletes who lack mental toughness. Now, on that, I think both of them are Correct. Because we've seen it where athletes can't take it and media members can't take it. So this is both sides. It ain't just one. You got the guys who sensitive. Every time KD responds to something, he get Stephen A on his soapbox. Every time KD get criticized, he get on his soapbox. It's both.
But Brandon, do you think I mean, this is what people don't realize. ESPN wants as much controversy as possible.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if they can get KD and Stephen A in a pissing match and it's broadcast on ESPN, what you think that's gonna do to the ratings?
Oh
My
yeah.
biggest pet peeve about the media is particularly ESPN. I think ESPN create news too much, to be honest. That's not the job of a journalist to be the originator of news. And it's a
Yeah.
lot of times where there's First Take and when the other one on Fox, where you creating news and you are the news entity. That's not what journalism is.
Yeah.
And another thing, I go back to my friend Kendrick Perkins. You know, the thing that I have a big problem with, how can you go from being a media personality to where you share, and he makes valid points. I'll give him
Yeah.
that. But when you criticize another player like KD when you was his teammate, and then you can go back to your career when you was with Boston and Oklahoma City and New Orleans, where you wouldn't give reporters a time of day. Somebody walk up to your locker in your stall while you sitting there and ask you, do you have a minute to answer a couple of questions? And you say, not today. And that's the problem with, if you're going to be a media personality and then you criticizing players for like KD, and then you completely forget what type of player you was when you were in that locker room, when media
Yeah.
come up to you. To me, that's I mean,
Yeah.
you're a contradiction of what you're talking about every day on ESPN, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, then the world don't see your locker room habits when you was a player, but if you value, as you've said, I mean, he said many times, he's a straight up person. What you see is what you get. You can't be what you see, what you get, and then you go back 5 to 7, 10 years to your career, and you was absolutely no media person. You didn't like interviewing. You didn't want
Yeah.
reporters who covered you to ask you questions. And now you the man delivering questions. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Oh, how soon we forget. And yeah, I do think that is the case as well. Because players that get triggered because of criticism of their play or the moves they make or whatever. But I think that media members do intentionally take shots at players just to see if they can get a response. There was a reporter, and I can't remember his name, but he covers San Francisco 49ers. And he got into it with Javon Kinlaw. I don't know if you've seen that. So Javon Kinlaw, I guess, called him up, DM'd him, went on his show and cursed him slap out. I mean, he didn't come on there to be nice to him, said all kind of stuff to him. And Javon is something that he shouldn't have done. It's not a good look for Javon. And all he did was feed into this guy because the guy said that when he go to practice and the guys, he was, getting into it with him and antagonizing him. He was ready for him to hit him because he said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna retire early. I'm just waiting on you to hit me." So he's looking to antagonize you and bait you into doing something stupid. And he was able to hook Javon Kinlaw to get him on there and curse him out. And all it did was give him a little bit of shine. And now one thing that happened was other 49ers players backed Javon Kinlaw, and they echoed what he said, that this is the type of people you have around the team and covering the team. He's like, and a lot of players, former and current 49ers, agree with Ken Law of how problematic the guy was. Javon just didn't handle it the way I wished he would have handled it.
Yeah, but that's like the world, man. It's like if you got a good police cop and you got a bad police cop. That's just you're gonna have good and you're gonna have the bad, and you're gonna have some. Another thing about journalism is that you got what you call columnists, and a columnist can pick at scab every day if he choose to, but
Yeah,
a columnist writes his own opinion, and if he writes it in a way that hey, this guy, two things that an athlete doesn't like. They never like to be called quitters.
mm-hmm.
They never wants to be called a guy who, forget where he come from. Once he got the big contract,
Yeah,
he's not committed to the game.
yeah,
And a lot of times an athlete, if his personal then may not have gotten out as much, and then you break something that's not good, then or it's something that's been told to you in confidentiality, and you break that bond, then those are issues.
yeah,
And another thing is an athlete sometimes jump on a reporter is when a coach, sometimes coaches will tell a reporter certain things that he may not tell any other reporter, and he's doing it in a way to motivate the player. So when the players see that, like a coach would say, I'm not getting the effort from this guy in practice that he should be getting. And he may not tell that nobody else but the one reporter. The one reporter write that, and that player look at that headline, and he sees something in the headline saying like he's quit on his teammates or he's not giving effort with his teammates. And I've seen this happen. That player,
mm-hmm.
regardless of where the information came from, it came in house with the coach with his name in the story, and the player get confrontational with the reporter because he don't agree with how he's being characterized as a player. It happens. It doesn't happen to me.
And then you
And
got this from the coach.
from the coach, and the first thing the player don't read, he's not gonna read the whole story. He's gonna read the headline. He's gonna read a couple of graphs, and he's gonna say that's BS.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's gonna think this whole point of the story is you throwing me under the bus, and this is your opinion of me, not the coach, and
Yeah,
you got something personal against me, and that's how
yeah,
they think. And it is. I mean, it's the and I go back to KD, man. KD, I don't understand why a guy that is talented as KD is as sensitive as anything I ever seen in a guy that's got that much stature as an NBA player
yeah.
that does, you know, what they call it when you create these false Twitter pages and
Oh, he had burner accounts. He admitted to having a burner account.
and it's just I remember a guy, Kevin Durant, played with Oklahoma City, won the MVP award, and literally cried his way through the whole speech. You know, this
Mm-hmm.
is the guy that's probably got a mom who, does whatever way you classify it. His mom has been there every step of the way. That
Yeah,
tells me he's got a support group. He's talented. What in the world do you have to be concerned about a Stephen A saying anything?
yeah,
If he was to leave the game tomorrow, his reputation as a player, I mean, I feel he's a Hall of Famer now. I mean, I don't
yeah. He's a
I don't think there's any way he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer probably.
Yeah.
I think this guy done everything as a great player. And why in the world would you be so sensitive if he never win another championship again? He's made his mark on this game. I heard LeBron say it when he was back with Cleveland. He said, "Man, KD, when he's in the gym working, I feel I gotta work."
Mm-hmm.
That's LeBron saying this. Like
Yep.
KD, he's working for that championship in the summer, and if I don't work like him, then I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And he said this, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm thinking, like, man, you got the respect of the guy who's the GOAT right now in the NBA. What in the hell you worried about a Stephen A? Stephen A is a big, $3 million man at ESPN. But
Yeah.
you think 15 years from now they're going to be thinking about what the hell Stephen A said about Kevin Durant? Kevin Durant is going to be talked about for eternity as a ball player, as a basketball player. We're not
Yes.
going to be talking about the stuff that he says on Get Up, or whatever the hell that show is in 15 years from now.
Yeah.
No matter how big his mouth is.
Yeah. And see, now not everybody's going to take the LeBron approach when it comes to criticism, because LeBron doesn't say anything. Now behind the scenes, he said stuff to people, sent messages, things like that, but he hasn't got on media, Twitter, film, anything, and criticized and said anything about people who criticized him. And you've never been more scrutinized than LeBron James. LeBron James is probably the most scrutinized athlete to ever walk this earth, because he rose to stardom in the social media era. And everybody got Twitter fingers today. So he's been talked about, and he doesn't give it any life. Skip Bayless has mentioned this man, I know, 1,000,000,000,000 times, at least. And he's never mentioned Skip's name one time. It hasn't happened. He's never talked about him. I'm sure behind the scene, Skip is everything but a child of God.
Oh, yeah.
But he's never talked about him. But that's this, and this KD's legacy is tied to his sensitiveness, his thin skinness. Because now, when you bring up KD, the basketball player, and we talk strictly basketball, KD's a great player. He 1 year, the NBA 2K game came out, and they had the top rated players, and KD was number one, and he was like a 96. And LeBron retweeted, he said KD should be 99. He said he felt KD was the best, especially at this point. He's the best player in the league. LeBron James said that. But KD now, but now it's not about basketball, just basketball anymore, because now outside of basketball, when he's not talking about basketball with KD, we talk about personal stuff. We got to bring up him having burner accounts, arguing with fans. You got to bring out his sensitive, the rabbit ears he has for anybody who says anything about him in the media, because it's not just Stephen A. Smith. He's criticized. He's had something to say about just about anybody who's had anything bad to say about him. And one of the things that I knew where he was thin-skinned is when he got the backlash for going to Golden State and the way he reacted to that. And I'm like, dude, he talked about how he wanted to play the villain, but playing the villain is not in him. He doesn't revel in that. Draymond Green can play the villain. Trae Young can play the villain, as we see. KD, you're not built like that, man, because you're too sensitive.
But it started with OKC, man. And I go back to this. I mean, he gave the franchise all he could give. And it wasn't enough. And yeah, he got vilified in OKC while Russell, was the guy, he stuck around until they traded him. But man, you can't. The world ain't in Oklahoma City. And basically, he outgrew the franchise. And he wanted an opportunity to win them, to get who can fault. LeBron did the same thing. But LeBron ain't got burner accounts, or LeBron didn't felt the need to put legs to a story, this is when you react to the Skip Baylesses and the Stephen A's, you putting legs on the story. The one thing that they teach these professional athletes with the media is don't put more coal to the fire. When you react, and normal people. It ain't just athletes. If a knucklehead puts something on your Twitter account to get you to react, then he just won.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
he,
absolutely.
he just won it. He just forced you to make yourself react to something that don't need no reaction. And that's the way I feel about Kevin Durant. And he's got everything. He's done his career. Whatever Stephen A. They're not going to be talking about Stephen A. in the Hall of Fame.
Right. Right.
But
You're going to be talking about Kevin Durant. Shoot, even Howard, I think it was Howard Stern. I think I talked about this before. And so even he found out that in his listeners on his show, his
mm-hmm.
big show, he found out that half the listeners were people who disagree with him, but they listen to him faithfully. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, other YouTubers talk about, they say when you start to get your following and it starts to grow, more people starts to watch you. Those people aren't there to most of those people, a lot of those people ain't there to support you. They're there to troll you, to disagree, to hate, but they're gonna watch you though. That's the thing. They're gonna watch you, but they'll be there to disagree, to say little stuff here and there, but they're going to watch you because they're really fans. And they're looking for you to acknowledge them, man. That's all it is. They're looking for you to acknowledge them. You never acknowledge them, they'll most likely go away.
And like KD got so much more he could be as impactful in society than have clashes with ESPN, who's just like getting they making a jackpot off this guy, you know.
Hey, soon as he tweeted, I'm sure the ESPN offices will set ablaze. It's like, hey, tell Stephen A. Get Stephen A. on the phone, let him know KD responded, get on there, make a response, tweet him back. We got to package this and we got to wrap it up and we have to sell it. Shoot, like when Stephen A. got into it with Kwame Brown, he could have easily addressed it right then and there, but he said, y'all watching my show on ESPN Plus. Come on. We know what this is about, man. Come on. It's about ratings.
There's a ratings and there's a marketing bonanza. And it's like I flipped over there. I wasn't even gonna watch the show. And then I looked in there and say, well, Stephen A. He say, tune back with us after the commercial break because Stephen A. is gonna have his rebuttal.
Yeah.
To Kevin Durant's criticism. I'm like, oh man, what is this, man? It's like the doggone boxing match. Oh man, I tell you what, boy, media. I'm gonna say this, man. Media has become a point where it's almost laughable, man. Is none of the principles that we were taught in school is being in practice right now in anything. It's just, journalism is you tell their stories and you stay the hell out of the way. You don't put yourself in the story. You tell the story without putting yourself in the middle of the story. And this world we live in right now, that's totally not the way journalism is. And it may not never get that way anymore,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're in a different era now. And it's almost like you got it where now anybody can pick up a camera, get a mic, get a light, and just like I started this, anybody can pick it up and start it and put their opinion out. And people want to get a following. They want to be like a Stephen A. Smith. I know. I think it's Roland Martin. Roland Martin talked about it. He said, "Yeah, people say, people dislike me. They say this about me. They see that about me." But one of the things that he noticed, he said, I have 3 million followers. And that's what you want. You want some of that. This is what you want. So you want to make that's why they try to make themselves the story.
But Brandon, it's a difference, man. It's a difference like what we got here. This is a podcast where we can discuss the issues of the week. It's if you, even with Stephen A., if Stephen A. come on every morning and talk about with his, he's analyzing what he saw in the game. That's journalism. But when you change the narrative and you gonna have a rebuttal from what KD said about you personally, that's not journalism.
No.
We don't do this on this show. We don't. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't. I'm not sitting on this show and saying that. Well, I went to Thomaston, Georgia, and I did a story on Travon Walker, but there was one relative who was just, and he wasn't cooperative,
Mm-hmm.
and we're getting in a tit for tat. That's putting me in the story, you know.
Yeah.
It serves
Yeah.
no purpose other than the fact that he was not cooperative to me, which is nobody else's business but mine.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's you putting yourself in the story. Yeah.
Right. No,
Yeah. Yeah. So.
the world is not interested on how difficult it was you to talk to somebody. The world is not interested in how far it took you to travel to go talk to somebody. And when you get there, they shut the door in your face. The world not worried of that. They don't care about that. That's your
Right.
personal. That's your personal business. That's not newsworthy for anybody outside of just yourself. When Stephen A. get on his soapbox and he's talking about, it's one thing to talk about opinions about, performance and this guy needs to do this, become a better player. It's a one thing to talk about the game and you didn't like his performance. You thought he didn't hustle enough. That's been going on for the last 100 years. But
Yeah.
when you got a tit for tat, a personal grudge against a player, and he's got a personal grudge against you, and you going and you're on your show to throw your punch to get in your word because he got his word in on you, that's not journalism. That's tit
Yeah.
for tat. That's what that is.
Right. That's exactly what that is. So man, we're gonna leave it there, and it's become a sideshow. That's what it is
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
places like ESPN, Fox Sports, even CBS Sports. One of the things that is happening is ratings. ESPN has lost ratings yearly. Like the
Mhm.
viewership is going down and down and down. That's why they've had to cut back. They've had to let so many people go because people are not interested. They're not tuning into it no more. So they have to do things to get ratings. Like that's just what they have to do. So, and it is tainted journalism.
And another thing, Brandon, I wish we can just get back to sports and let
Mm-hmm.
sports be the attraction.
Yeah,
Not, I mean, I look at, I mean, the NFL. They're a perfect example. Even the NBA, the game starting at 9 o'clock, and we got a 30-minute show here and a 30-minute show there, and we got to talk and we got to analyze. We got to do this. We got to do that. And we have become a point in society now that everything's got to be a big stage show, and the show is overshadowing the game. I mean, I'm sure, yeah,
yeah,
ratings is important, but man, do everything has to be a, a national event? Does it have to be bigger than the game? You
right.
know, we
Yeah,
watch sports for the athleticism, the plays, sports in a game like the finals is an example. That's the entertainment. I mean, that's
yeah,
what we getting on the television to watch. We watching Steph, we watching, Jalen Brown, we watching those guys. But now we've become so like enamored with everything's got to be a Hollywood show that is
yeah,
overshadowing the game. The game is less important than the build up, and it's like, I mean, how long do we got to wait before we see the game?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you, and that's the reason why those networks is going down. The viewership is going down because people are like, yo, it's too much fluff. Can we get just the substance? I need too much flash, not enough substance. That's like when they had The Rock on the field introducing the teams in the Super Bowl. Please don't do that ever again. Nobody wants to see that. Yeah. So we're going to move on from that. We're going to talk a little baseball before we get into some football. But it's 5 Tampa Bay Rays players declined to wear the LGBTQ plus logo on uniform during Pride Night celebration. The players said it was a faith-based decision. So 5 players on the Tampa Bay Rays roster opted not to wear a patch the team added to his uniform intended to celebrate Pride Month and Saturday's 3-2 loss to the Chicago White Sox. During the team's 16th annual Pride Night celebration, Rays caps and uniforms had logos colored in the style of modern LGBTQ plus Pride flag, but not everyone in the clubhouse chose to participate. First, to look at the changes that Tampa Bay made to uniforms for Saturday's game. Of course, they add the rainbow. And pitchers Jason Adam, Jalen Beeks, Brooks Raley, Jeff Springs, and Ryan Thompson were among the players who did not wear the patch on their uniforms and chose to wear team's standard caps for the June 4th home game. Adams was selected by the organization to speak on behalf of the players who opted out and called it a faith-based decision, and the decision wasn't judgmental per the Times. So it's a hard decision because ultimately we all said what we want is them to know that you're all welcome and loved here. But when we put it on our bodies, I think a lot of guys decided that it's just a lifestyle that maybe not that they look down on anybody or think differently. It's just that maybe we don't want to encourage it if we believe in Jesus, who's encouraged us to live a lifestyle that would abstain from that behavior, just like Jesus encourages me as a heterosexual male to abstain from sex outside the confines of marriage. It's no different. Manager Kevin Cash said the players' decision not to wear the pride caps and patches, which team described as something players could choose to opt into, didn't create any division in the clubhouse. I think what it has created is, like what you've heard, a lot of conversation and valuing the different perspectives inside the clubhouse, but really appreciating the community that we're trying to support here, Cash said. So I gotta go in a little bit on this. You talk about acceptance and wanting people to accept you for your beliefs and what you do. But I don't have to participate in your self-image. I don't have to accept you. I don't have to believe in anything that you do. I don't. I'm not required to do those things. But I'm not going to disrespect you. I'm not going to down you, treat you differently because of what you believe and what you do. I simply don't have to participate in it. Hey, people, especially with the things they say they identify as something. I say, okay, well, I identify as LeBron James. Where's my $1 billion? I mean, if that's what we're doing, and if you talk about acceptance and equality, accept that I don't agree with whatever it is, because now it's gotten to a point where if you don't agree with me, then you're the bad guy. If you don't go along with the mainstream narrative, you're the bad guy. If you don't do this, you're a bad guy. If you don't like drag queens dancing in front of your children at elementary schools, you're a bad guy, which is absolutely insane to me. That's a whole nother show, but that's crazy. And most, I won't say most, but it's a lot of people who agree with what they did. They're not going to be vocal about it, but they don't agree with the lifestyle that they said. And they say it's a faith-based decision. And so many people on Twitter and stuff talking about how they're sensitive and Jesus didn't say anything about heterosexuals and homosexuals and all of that. I got all that. But outside of the emotional argument about this, let's be honest what this is really about. Let's be honest about what this is really about. Elon Musk put up, he tweeted out right before this month, because this is Pride Month that we're in. He tweeted out a tweet where you had all these companies who were going to change their logos to the rainbow. People, this isn't about some allyship in the LGBTQ community. This is about money. That's all this is about. And even the people who are a part of that community has said it. All of these companies are doing is pandering to make money. That's all this is about. This isn't about them agreeing with your lifestyle and being an ally. No, it's about dollars and about cents. They know they're going to sell rainbow hats. They're going to know they're going to sell their logo with the rainbow on it. They know that's going to sell. If it wasn't going to sell, they wouldn't do this. It's about money, man. That's all this is about at the end of the day. But what you think about this?
Well, I agree with everything you said. I think that, I'll just say it like this, man. From a guy who was a kid in the 70s and growing up as a man in the 2000s, our world is just changed to, I wouldn't even say for the better. I mean, I just feel that when I can look back on my kid years in the 70s, and even then, I mean, I just think there was a better way of America where a person could say how they felt about a particular topic, whether it was right or wrong. They had an opportunity to express their opinions and didn't
Yeah,
have to worry about getting a repercussion or lose their job or because they didn't agree with the consensus. I think right now in America, if you don't agree, even when you disagree, that certain issues, there's so many issues right now. Roe versus Wade, what we're talking about right now on that topic with the, you know,
yeah,
that if you have a disagreement or don't believe in the philosophy, it's automatically you bashing.
yeah,
And in this country, it used to be a time where a democracy is a situation where you have freedom of speech, that you don't have to go with the consensus and be judged as an outcast because your
yeah,
opinion is different than than what society wants you to be. And I think it's a problem. I really feel. I mean, I have no problem in anybody's lifestyle as long as it don't come in my house, and
yeah,
I don't have no problem saying it. I don't agree with a whole lot of things. I don't have to let the world know, but I know what I control in my house
right,
and my children. And I feel that every American have the right to express their opinion. It's in the Constitution. It's in the First Amendment. It's called freedom of speech. And
yep,
I think right now this society that we live in this country is that you know it's become to a point where you literally making people afraid to say if they don't believe in something and they say it publicly, they're being afraid to say it because it goes against what people feel is right and wrong. And that's not what this country was built on. This country was built
right,
on that everybody, as you say, everybody is entitled to their own lifestyles. Everybody is entitled to the way they want to live, as long as they don't, you know, it don't impact others or you don't force anything on others.
yeah,
But when you start asking people about certain lifestyles, I think a lot of things get lost on. A lot of times people want to raise their children in a way that that to make things where it don't confuse them when they're kids.
yeah,
And I think we live in a world right now. If you sat your child down and watched the news or on television or any one of these 100 stations they got, and if you don't teach your children about things that you want them to know and a lifestyle that you feel is deemable for them, and if you don't do that, it's hard to live in this world. I mean, it's hard to
yeah,
it's hard to figure out what's right and what's wrong because nobody's saying what's wrong. Everybody's saying what's right. Everybody got a reason for what's right. I'll take it. I'll take it to gun laws. I mean, that's the hottest topic right now is gun laws. Yes, it's in the Second Amendment that you have the right to bear arms. But if you read that Constitution, did it say you have the right to have an assault rifle that's throwing 50 rounds of ammunition at one trigger of the hand? No, it didn't say that.
Yeah.
But we live in this world that we know gun violence is going on. We see it every day. We
It's
see
every day.
schools being shot up and everything.
Every
And
day.
we got people literally scared to say that we need to do something to control the use of guns or put in stipulations about how to, you know, how to curtail um, where people can be restricted from purchasing guns that don't really should have them.
Yeah.
And we gotta have a society, man. I mean, if we're gonna, this might be preaching, but it should be preached. We gotta have America that has a situation that what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, and when you got people that says what's right and they feel that's right, then they are entitled to their opinion, just like just like politics. A Republican is not going to say the same thing a Democrat say.
Yeah.
But if you in the middle and you are American, you have the right to listen to both sides. But if we living in this country right now where it's only going to be one side that speaks that okay, this is our side, this is what we am imposing on you, then it's not a democracy like that. You know,
No.
you can't have where if you don't agree, like these ball players for the Rays, if you don't agree to it, then why should they get chastised for it? They have their reasons, just like a person that agrees to that. But they got their
Yeah.
own reasons, so it doesn't mean that they should be vilified. I know I hear this stuff about okay, well, why should we go out and buy tickets for somebody who don't believe the lifestyle that I believe in? Okay, well, that's almost like saying I'm a Protestant, you a Baptist, and you a Catholic, and we go to church. We do go to church on Sunday, but we don't have the same values in our religion. So you
Right.
don't say all three of them wrong.
Right. Right. Shoot, that's like and this is off topic a little bit, but along the lines of what you're talking about, that's like with the with Black Lives Matter. Now, Black
Mm-hmm.
Lives Matter, the organization, not the movement and the same. The movement and the same, got no issue with that. But the organization that spawned out of that, very early on, when I think it was Marcellus Wiley, he read their like their little manifesto on their site and
Mm-hmm.
he pointed out some things in it. And I went there, I saw it, and when it was brought to light, they took it down because in it they talked about fighting for everyone except the black man. They had black woman, black children, black trans people, all of that. They never mentioned the man, and he brought that up. He said this organization isn't for black men, even though it was built off the backs of black men who were killed by police officers. And sure
Mm-hmm.
enough, of course, all the stuff has come out. They got $90 million. They've been taking that money, throwing lavish parties, buying mansions, misappropriating the funds. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we know that now. But initially, when anybody would push back against it because they saw what the organization was. Oh no, you're just hater. You're a coon. You tap dancing. You not black. You not this. You not that. But I'm like, dude, I clearly see what's going on. And sure enough, we've been vindicated because look what's come out about it now. You know, one of the things they talked about, especially with the right to bear arms, the right to bear arms wasn't necessarily to protect you from your next door neighbor from kicking in your door. The guns were provided so tyrannical governments couldn't come in and take over and tell you what to do.
Exactly. And that goes back to England and the colonists, which is the reason why they drew that up in the Constitution, because the Britons would go in and take the troop. They'd take your house, throw you out your house, bring their troops in your house, and the militia, they got a clause in that Second Amendment about bear arms for militia. And back in that time, they didn't have a national army for the colonists. They had state. They had the states had a militia. So
Yeah.
if you lived in Massachusetts, then you would be a part of their. When it comes time to protect that state from the British, you have the right to bear arms because you're a member of the militia and you had to basically go fight for your state. That's why it was put in there. But the
Yeah.
problem in America right now is we change laws and we interpret laws differently than what they were set out to be. And sometimes the Constitution had to be changed.
Yeah.
there also was a clause in that Constitution that was written up that black people was only counted as a third when it comes
Yeah.
to voting. So there have been some amendments in there to, and that is part of what life is all about. Just because you start something don't mean that that's the way it's going to have to be forever. You know,
Yeah.
that's why there are 27 amendments. They're not the 10 Bill of Rights when it started. But
Yeah.
we got to be a society where we don't throw people over the bus because they got a dissenting view from a view that you agree of. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying like you go, hey, whatever that other person's lifestyle is, that's their lifestyle. And in my opinion, is as long as it don't come in my house, as long as it don't impact my kids, you can do whatever you want to do. Now, I don't have no problem. I'm
Yeah.
not going to bash you what you choose as your lifestyle, but you're not going to bash me because I don't agree with it. And I think that's the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the issue right now in this country. And you can go back with Roe versus Wade. You know, there's always going to be a two sides to that issue, and no matter how you slice it, how it's going to be interpreted. I'm one. I say this on record. I feel that if you put a law in the books and it was put there for a reason, there's a valid reason why it was put in there. And I don't
Yeah.
think that because over a period of time, because you got a group of conservatives in that's being elected right now, being put in place in the Supreme Court, who feels that things should be different without justification for being different, then I got a problem with that. I
Yeah.
feel that I mean that's going to be an issue. It's been debated a long time, man. That law came out in 1973, and it's a law that was put in the books. When it was put in the books in 1973, there was a side who didn't like it, and there was a side who felt that women's rights should be protected. That's why it put in the law. But you can't have it where, okay, we appointed this group of Supreme Court justices, and they gonna say now is the time to change it. I mean, how is
Right.
that fair? How is
Yeah.
that justifiable? Because if you look back, I mean, I say this, and I know this is a controversial topic. But what makes the world different from 1973 to 2022? The women is still saying the same thing. They're saying the same thing in 73. They're saying it now. They feel that they should control their own bodies. That's what they said then, and that's what they're saying now for the ones who
Yeah.
disagree with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, how should I argue against that if I was a person who feels if I'm in the middle and I'm trying to sort out what's right and what's wrong or whatever. But that's a choice for America to sort out. I don't think it's wrong for somebody to say what their views are in this country. I think
Yeah.
that's why it's America. I don't, and that's why we're not in Russia. I think
Mhm.
that anybody who voices opinion on either way of the other side, I don't think they should be vilified for that.
Yeah. And this comes down to censorship as well too. That's rampant right now too. It's a big issue with censorship, and that's what they're kind of doing to these guys. This is censorship. Hey, you're not doing what we want you to do. You're not doing what the popular narrative is. We
Mm-hmm.
don't like what you're doing, so we're going to attack you. And then
Mm-hmm.
when the attack is not anything educated. It's all emotional. There's no logic to it because these guys didn't make an emotional decision. They made a logic-based decision. They're like, hey, this doesn't go with my faith. And I don't feel comfortable doing it because it doesn't go with my faith. That should be the end of the story. There shouldn't be no discussion about it after that because this isn't something where them not wearing that just like it affected a whole lot of people. And it was just so horrible. It's so bad and it affected so many people's lives. No, it was a personal decision, and I support those guys in their decision. Just like the players who wore it, they don't have a problem with players wearing it. Their teammates have no problem with it. Why does anybody else have an issue with what those players do?
Yeah, I mean I think you said it right on the nail there. I mean, but whether they for it or against it, it's
Yeah,
we live in a country where you can express your own opinions.
yeah,
You
yeah.
express your opinion without being coerced, forced, or any of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. You have the right to share your opinion. You don't have the
Yep.
right to bash. I mean, I don't think that's the appropriate way to do it, but you do have a
Right.
right to choose what way you want to go, and it shouldn't be forced upon you either. That's part of what makes this country great. That you're
Yeah.
not forced upon things. It wasn't this country wasn't built on those principles. It's built on liberty
Mm-hmm.
and those type of things, where you make decisions and you entitled to your opinions, and you don't have the king telling you you can't do this and you can't do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah, true that. And that's just like, people was like, well, children should be able to decide what gender they are and what they identify as and all that. Um, I ain't got no argument with that. Your kids in your house can do whatever you want them to do. But the kids over here in this house gotta they march to the beat of this drum because I protect and provide for them. So
mm-hmm.
don't come to me preaching that to me, preach that to your children. These children over here are riding on this train over here. So yeah, and you can let them decide that. And there's so many stats on that to where they allow these kids to make these transitions. And like 75% of them by the time they hit 18 want to transition back. I read a thing with a young lady who transitioned to a man and took away her chest and took away a lot of stuff. And now she's regretting it. She hates it. And she's on the brink of self-deletion. Like, so at all those arguments and stuff, let people decide for themselves, and don't try to. And then all of it, this is basically bullying. The people who preach against bullying do the most bullying. I notice. It's amazing to me.
But you know what, Brandon, this country right now, and I say this even for Jacksonville, man, and it's about a whole lot of things. I mean, we live in a society right now where we're talking about the topics that's going on right now. About some people are literally scared to express their opinions on issues that they believe in, but can't share because it feels that they're bashing something. But you know what?
Yeah.
It hurts me to my heart to go through Jackson. Now you can drive down Union Street and you can go different places. I mean, I can go all over Jacksonville. I see people standing on the corners with signs and asking for money. I see people. Man, people are having a hard time. Man, the gas is almost $5 a gallon,
Yep.
and I feel that this country, man, we're in a point where you have to have a way to fix things. Not allow things to continue. I mean, put in a situation where you try to make things better. Try
Yeah.
to come up with brainstorm sessions where you could make life better for everyone. And since and it ain't all just the pandemic. It's just that when you look and see how much the rents is going up, and they're going up real quick. You look at interest rates. You got gas at $4.75 a gallon, and
What up, Ness?
you got people right now don't don't have anywhere to turn to. They don't know where the direction to go. You got people living in their cars and trucks, and you got people don't have any help whatsoever on how to fix their situation. And when you talk
Yeah.
about mental illness, which is a problem, well, there's a lot of things that forces mental illness, and we keep talking about it, but we don't find solutions to solve the problem.
You know,
And it
thoughts
just
and prayers.
yeah,
That's all
yeah,
they're giving you is thoughts and
yeah.
prayers. No solution, just thoughts and prayers.
But it troubles me in Jacksonville that we got a major problem with homelessness, and I don't see the mayor, I don't see anybody in this city talking enough about it. They're talking about it, but they're not talking enough to make solutions. I
Yeah.
mean, you got these missions and things, and it just seems like there's no centralized way of funding to help Trinity City Mission, to whatever the missions are. I see them on Union Street, and I still see people literally living on the corners from Davis
Yeah.
Street on down. And it's like it's almost become common. You drive down Union, well, you expect to see people that don't have a home to live in. I mean, it's just like, where is the leadership in Jacksonville to try to make this situation better, or something? Because these are not people who just, a lot of people think homeless people are just, they own drugs, and they destroyed their lives, so I don't have any concern about it. No, no, that's not all true. There's some
No.
people homelessness that working on jobs is not paying enough because those landlords lost a lot of money during the pandemic, and right now they can boot you out, and they're trying to recoup money. I mean, what if you live in an apartment and you lost your job during the pandemic, and you get a check from a landlord saying you owe $5,000, but for all that money that you didn't pay during the 2 years of the pandemic, and in order for you to live in this house, in this apartment again, we need that check for $5,600. What are you gonna do? You don't have that type of money.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I mean, it
Right.
ain't even a laughing matter, but that's, to be real, that's what's going on in this country. And then you talk about, like, well, we got a mental health crisis. Well, there's a lot of things being forced on people where they got no direction to turn to. They got nowhere. They're not getting help. Everything is a problem. And and we sitting and not doing nothing.
Yeah.
And we I hope we don't see more confusion, but it
Yeah.
is. It's out of control, man. I mean, I work at a newspaper, and it just I don't I want to do more than what I can do, but I
Yeah.
mean, something has to be done because family drove down Union Sunday, and it's like 5 blocks of people just they living in lawn chairs. And if that don't
Yeah.
shake somebody up, man, because if you look at that, you say, that could be me, that could be you, that could be anybody. It could be anybody listening on this show that you and your luck turned bad. There's no avenues in this city that can help you from not hitting the street. And this
Yep.
and I don't talk a lot about a whole lot of things. Yeah, I am in sports, but man, these people are not homeless because they own drugs and drink too much. I mean, we got to get that perception out that that's not the reason that a lot of these people. It is for some that got
Yeah.
drug addictions and those kind of things, but there are literally people that I've seen, and and it ain't just downtown where they holding signs and say can you spare a dollar. They all on the west side. They in Arlington. They everywhere. So
Everywhere. Yeah.
if you
Shoot,
got
just
a
like he say they in Mandarin. He said he was in Mandarin. The gas station got almost attacked by 3 when he gave one some money. And Mandarin is you. I grew up in Mandarin for a little bit. Grew up
mhm.
in Grand Park and I grew up in Mandarin. Was in Mandarin for a few years. And I rarely saw homeless people in Mandarin. Every now and then you'll see them on the north side, but now you see them everywhere now. It doesn't matter now.
Well, I've been back here since 2017, and I can almost tell you it's about doubled from 5 years ago when I first got back home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's another thing. Yeah, it does. Yep, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It speaks volumes. Yeah, yes, it does, man. So when the sheriff moves out of the county, supposed to be securing, speaks volumes. Yeah, man. So I mean, it is what it is. But you're right. This stuff is pushed on the people, just like with these players. They want to push their beliefs, their narratives onto these players. And one of the things too that's allowed this is, I would say, weak men. Too many men have been weak and bent the knee and acquiesced to the whims of the few. They have. You haven't had enough people, just people in general, but especially men, to stand up. Just and you don't have to come out, disagree, shout them down, curse them out, talk bad about them. Just stand on your principles. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. What your beliefs? Okay, you believe that. Okay, your religion doesn't believe in this. I don't want to wear. Stand on that. Don't bend the knee. That's all you have to do. But what do people do? As soon as they get hit with a little backlash, they 180 and they tuck their tail and they go running and hide. And that's an issue.
And another thing is we live in a society right now where money, you know. I've said this many times on your show, and I said this about the NFL because I'm familiar with it. If you're going to put signs up on your stadium fields that say end racism and you don't do anything but put a sign up, then you're not doing anything to serve that purpose.
No,
You
you're
know,
not.
you're just going to put a sign up and say end racism, and then you got your own in-house where you haven't increased your numbers for black coaches in the last 20 years, then you don't need to put signs up, man. You need to do something about your own in-house problem and then become an advocate for racism and all those subtle messages. But if you putting up signs just to connect to the masses and make sure that you're in line with society, so you can't be villain, criticized for this and that, then you're not generally doing anything to facilitate change. And that's
Yeah.
the kind of things that we have to be more cognizant of in this country, of not always accepting because somebody's put up a sign that you agree with and they're
Yep.
not putting anything behind the sign other than they got the holding up a sign. That's
Yep.
that's not that's not cutting it.
Yep. It is. It's not cut it, man. So we're gonna leave it right there. We're gonna get into some football. And first and foremost, I had him on my background here. Aaron Donald got paid today. They restructured his contract, gave him, I think it was a 2 years, 60 million, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And it's he's deserving of it. Oh, let's get his last comment. He said, "Yes, Uncle John, the homelessness in Duval has doubled. We have a governor that's soft as Georgia Cotton. As soon as you disagree with him, he's cutting your budget." Yeah, yeah, it's and yeah, it's way more. When I've seen women with their children holding up those signs, I say yes, it's gotten bad. You just see guys and you may see a woman here and there, but when you see a woman with children, it's gotten really bad. But
I
um,
almost
but
want to go out in the community, take a tape recorder, and go out and speak to these people and write a story. That's all I do is write stories. So everybody has a story, but something has to be done to make the point addressed that this is a major situation. I won't even call it a problem. It's a major situation that's going on in front of everyone in this town, and we got inaction and no action. And I always feel that if you tell somebody's story, it resonates to make government people act. When you hear
mm,
a lady's story that she got two kids, she come home from work, she working two jobs, and then she
mm-hmm,
comes home And then all of a sudden, I got a bill in the mailbox saying that if I don't come up with $56,000 by next month, then I no longer have a partner. And that's the stuff that's going on. I mean, landlords lost a lot of money during the pandemic because you know, they had a government situation where if you didn't have the money, you didn't have to pay.
Yeah.
And the landlord say, okay, just like any other business, we're gonna have to recoup that money we lost. And how do they recoup it? They raise the rates. They raising the rents that's unaffordable for the people in this city. And we're sitting here with the government, the sheriff living out in some other county, and we, whatever else going on in this city. And I hear all this about, we at the, some people are always going to say, oh, yeah, well, I look at the numbers, and this is the best, the lowest unemployment numbers in 40 years. Okay, yeah, you're right about that. But what you don't know is a lot of those jobs are the McDonald's, the fast food restaurant jobs, they're the hotel jobs, and they're not paying anything more than, everybody talking about, yeah, $15 an hour. Well, yeah, you can make $15 an hour at a fast food restaurant, but who's to say you're gonna get guaranteed 40 hours a week? You
Yeah.
might get 25 hours, but they're not gonna guarantee you 40 hours a week. And when you got a job like that, it's always gonna be inflexible. You don't know from week to week how many hours you're gonna make. And then you got that rent coming, and then you might be good 1 month, and then the next month, half the hours gone. And who
Yeah.
want to work 3 jobs? I mean, tell me, how can you work 3 jobs and you got kids, and you got to get them to school?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot
This
of
is right.
single parent mothers out there too. So tell me how that's gonna work. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And once again, hey, all they got for you is thoughts and prayers. That's about it. It's nothing actionable, and a lot of prosperity preaching out there with no end goal in mind, no solutions, nothing, man. So, but yeah, it is what it is. But what was it talking? Oh, Mr. Aaron Donald. So somebody brought up the fact that the best player in all of football is making Kevin Love money. And it brings up the whole thing of how much football players make versus basketball players, and just the way the numbers is more players on a team, the salary, you got the salary cap, things like that. So those players can't make what the NBA players make on that grand scale. But the stars are going to make more and more and more, and that's going to raise the floor. As far as money, especially with these TV contracts. But Aaron Donald, this is well deserved of him. I think he is the best player in the league right now, and it's not close. A quarterback is the most important position on the field, but Aaron Donald is the best player in the league. He's unstoppable.
Yeah,
He takes over games.
yeah. My comments on this is very brief and very quick. There's no way in the world this guy should have had to threaten to retire to get that contract reworked the way they reworked it.
Yeah.
Actually, they should have reworked his contract maybe even 2 years ago, to be honest. I mean, he's that dominant, he's that good, and there's no way that he should have had to literally threaten to retire for the Rams of all teams to
Mm-hmm.
give him the money that he deserves. This guy's the best guy in football. He plays middle, he's an interior edge rusher, is what I call him. And he
Mm-hmm.
caused more havoc than anybody on the defensive front. And it ain't easy being a guy who can get to the quarterback playing in the interior and dominate the linemen in front of him to put that much pressure on quarterbacks. That's a rare talent that he has. And there's not a lot of, you look at the history of the game, you got to go back to like people like Reggie White and people like that, that
Mm-hmm.
they're it ain't easy to dominate a game playing in the interior on the defensive front. You get double, you mostly there to fill the gap and let the
Yeah.
linebacker make the plays. And this guy is such a dominant force, strength, whatever you want to call it. I've seen him make tackles opposite side of the field when he's playing center field as a defensive lineman, interior,
Mm-hmm.
not outside,
Yes.
and he's making tackles side to side. And
Yes.
he has to make a point to literally almost tell the Rams that if you don't get this contract readjusted, I'm gonna retire. So he deserving. Proud, hey, glad he got it because he deserved it probably more than anybody in the league.
Yeah. Yeah. And listening to him, he did. I think he was on the I Am Athlete podcast, and it's very clear, which I already knew. I didn't need to hear him talk about it to confirm what I already knew. Is that he's a very cerebral guy as well,
Mm-hmm.
and he studies the game. Studies the game. He talk about him. He's a gym rat, but he's also a film room junkie as well. You know, he was talking to Brand. I think it's Brandon Marshall, Pac Man, and I forgot the other one that's on the other. I think it might be Chad Ochocinco, and he was talking about how he could stay on the play and he'll study for 10 to 15 minutes, and he watches tendencies of the lineman. He watches hand placement. He watches what they like to do on third down. Likes what they do like to do on second and short. You know, he's one of those guys. He said, and that's gonna say he said he doesn't get in any dumb trouble off the field, comes into camp in shape consistently. Hey,
Yep.
the consummate pro. The consummate pro. Yeah. And the only time he's even got into spats on the field is because other dudes act crazy. And they say whatever to him or they try to do whatever. Like in the Super Bowl. I know Cincinnati's coaching staff was like, why did you piss him off? Why? Because after they pissed him off, it was a wrap for all of them. No matter what they did, they threw at him, it didn't work. He dominated the game from that point on.
I literally seen more linemen crack block him, try to go down at his knees than any other lineman I've seen over the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And that's why
Yeah.
he get pissed off because they go for his knees,
Yep.
which is
Every time.
outlawed. You're not supposed to do that. But he's that
Yep.
dominant. You can't hold him straight up. So, and he get pulled, he get hold. Man, you really if you look at the replays and just look at the defensive line play, man, them guys try to do everything in the book to stop this guy, and still can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Cincinnati literally had triple teamed him.
Yep.
Started triple teaming him. Like legit was triple teaming. And they still couldn't stop it. I said, golly. Domination, man. Absolute domination. But we're going to leave that there, and we're going to talk about Mr. Travon Walker. We'll talk about the Jaguars a little bit. But first, we're going to talk about Travon Walker. You said you visited his hometown and, you know, spoke to people at his school, spoke to people in the town, spoke about him, and you learned a lot about that young man on your trip.
Yeah, I did, man. And I volunteered to do this story. I wanted to know just, a guy. I mean, to be honest, I've never saw a guy who, if you look back a year ago, he literally was going to come back to Georgia because his projections was to be, I think his projections was like a third round pick going into this year, going into this past season. I mean, he wasn't projected high at all. He's almost like a jack of all trades for when he played at Georgia, playing, multiple positions and all that. But I wanted to find out from the people that know him the most, which is the people in his hometown, his teachers, his coaches. I always say, man, character is developed not when you go to college. I think your
Mm-hmm.
character is developed when you're in high school, and it develops on how do you handle success when you're 16 and 17, because the way you handle success at 16 and 17 plays a large role when you get older. How do you handle it after you done matured? And this
Mm-hmm.
kid has been a star from that day. I mean, he started playing sports when he was 8 years old. and he played Some people say he might have been a better basketball player than a football player, but this kid was on a traveling AAU team at 8 years old and won a national AAU basketball championship when he was in the fourth grade. You know, a lot of people didn't know, that, it always takes someone in your life to push you in a direction. You don't be born and you just automatically come out to be this workhorse. You born to be this and that. So it takes someone to push them buttons right, to set the course for you, to see the potential that you may not see when you're that young. And that
Yeah.
turns out to be his father. His father was, he's a former Marine, and he's tough. He was tough on him, man. I mean, it's, sometimes you have old school parents that, they're gonna make it tougher than probably any coach you ever have in your life. And I think
Yeah.
he had a father that's was tougher on him than he probably ever gonna see in the NFL, the Georgia high school. With the high school coach said that, he had a father that he was tough. This guy used to cut the motor lawn with a football helmet. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
kids, used to mow the lawn. Georgia yards are different than Florida yards, because them front
Mm-hmm.
yards I saw is about as big as 3 yards.
Yeah.
And Georgia got they got red clay saying it ain't black. So when that sun hit that red sand, boy, hey,
Mm-hmm.
heat stroke can come in any minute. This kid was wearing a helmet and a onesie, a jumpsuit, cutting the grass because the father wanted him to get used to get acclimated to the heat. Now,
Yeah.
and I talked to his middle school coach, I talked to his high school coach, I talked to his high school basketball coach. Every one of those coaches said, man, we didn't have to teach him, we didn't have to tell him anything about working. What I appreciate about a kid like Travon Walker is that there's a lot of players come out of high school, go to college, go to play Division I, and they rest on their talent. They don't work to improve the talent because they feel that, hey, I got it. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
do what the coach say, but my dream is the NFL, and they live and die based on that talent. This kid is different. You know, Not only does he has the talent, he works. Everybody, Georgia coaches said, high school coaches said, when a guy that
Mm-hmm.
talent, the best player on the team is the hardest worker, that's when you got something special. And that's what this guy has. He's a workaholic. He never made a grade below a B in high school. You know, and he played on a basketball team in high school that won 75 straight games and 2 state championships in the state of Georgia. And he was there was another kid on that team that signed with Georgia, but the coaches say by far he was the best player on the team. He's a shot blocker,
Yeah.
rebounder, and can score in the post. And like I said, I said this on your show before. I don't hold Trent Baalke with a whole lot of regard. I mean, I think I think that some of the draft picks last year is questionable. I think that some of the things that went on with the coaching search, and I just don't. I don't hide my opinions.
Yeah.
If I think you worthy, then you worthy. If not, then I'm gonna say it. But I gotta say, this guy, the Jaguars did their homework with this kid. I mean,
Yeah.
this not a prospect where you can just watch a couple of games and predict that he's a number one pick, because nobody had him listed as a number one pick coming out of that championship season. So I think what the Jaguars did, not just being impressed by his numbers, his measurables at the scouting combine. From what I heard, they've been looking at him for more than a year. You know, at the end of
Yeah.
his sophomore year at Georgia, they were looking at him, and I think when I watched those guys on that practice field today, when Josh Allen teaching him, giving him pointers on his hand technique, and you see both these guys standing up, man, they look like one of that. Man, they look like Mike Singletary and those two linebackers for the Bears '85. When they look like linebackers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think they got a kid who's just. I mean, what amazes me when I watch him on the practice field is just that. I mean, the combination of size, agility, and speed. It just you don't see that combination for a guy that big playing outside linebacker. You know, he
Yeah.
looks like a defensive tackle standing up at the line of scrimmage. Should be having his hand on the ground. But when you see him break and you see him drop back in coverage and you see how fast his closing speed is, it's like, man, if these guys was in pads every time we go out there once a week to watch him play, there's a play that he makes that say, man, if they were in pads, he'd put this guy in the hospital. And I still
Yeah.
say this, it's going to be hell trying to block this guy. I mean, he might see a lot of doubles and chips by two tight ends, but whatever he sees, it's going to allow Josh Allen that much more, less blocking in front of him, and you probably going to see more of a Josh Allen that you saw in his rookie season when Calais was getting all that attention in
Yeah.
270, when he was a rookie, than what you saw last season where Josh would get double, he'd get chipped by a tight end. There wasn't no open lanes, and they was ready for whatever he had. And I think a talent like Travon is going to get a lot of attention, just his presence. It's like we got to find a way to block this guy, and he may
Yeah.
not get 14 sacks and all that his first 3 years, but when you can attract that type of attention and you get a defense that can get 50 sacks, nobody gonna be caring about all that. so,
Yeah.
but you know, I really went to a town that this guy is a hometown hero. They threw a parade for him in January after Georgia won the national championship. They had banners on the courthouse. You know, teachers just said that here's a guy who was brought, he was raised right. I had a media special, a librarian, who just said that every time for 4 years he would always address me, no ma'am, yes ma'am, and just was. I mean, she said when she watched the draft and heard his name called, she just went to tears because she was just so proud of what she done seen from him when he was a student at that high school, that she wanted just wanted success for him so much that she got emotional about it, because she said that anybody
Yeah.
that is that, punctual, that nice, great student, and did everything that you were supposed to do from 4 years in high school, didn't follow the crowd, didn't he was a 5-star, and the kid was still running the class so he wouldn't be late. He didn't think of himself as special, you know. They've had him playing at all, tight end. A couple of times he even played quarterback, running
Mm.
back. He played everything, you know. And just to see that, hey, I still gotta work. I still gotta get my grades up. I still gotta feel that, hey, I'm just like anybody else in this school. I don't get special treatment. If I'm late, I
Yeah.
gotta deal with it. And that's who he is. He's a I call him a winner in my book, whether he start the first game or not. And I think the Jaguars got a good player, and I think you got a motivated player. I think you got a player here with the Jaguars that knows that everything he does is being watched in his hometown, as small as it is.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, there's a thing that I saw that a lot of times players that come from small towns in the NFL, a lot of them produce a lot better than the ones that come from the big city.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that with Travon, I'm sure he's heard the noise as far as
Yeah.
them taking him number one, because there was a lot of criticism. There's a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of criticism of them taking him number one, and I'm sure he's heard the noise, and that's just more motivation for him. And with him, one of the things I would tell any fan with Trayvon Walker, judge him on pressure. Not
Yeah.
putting the quarterback on the ground. Putting the quarterback on the ground is all fine and good, but I've seen guys have 2 sacks in the first quarter and disappear the rest of the game. No, consistent pressure. That's why what makes Aaron Donald great is because, hey, you might not put the quarterback on the ground 2, 3 times a game, but he's affecting the pocket every single play. They
Yeah.
they have to account for him. They got a triple team. His impact is immeasurable when it comes to things like that. It goes far beyond the stat sheet. And I think that's what we're going to see from Trayvon Walker.
Yeah. And he's working on things like they were working on with his hand technique, the slap the block hand, the punch and getting it. He's still got things that he has to learn, because the one thing that you look back on Georgia, and I think this is what's going to happen. I think they're going to be people within 3 years going to say, man, why did Georgia not just have him go after the quarterback? Just put him in a down position
Right.
and let him go rip it out and just go after the quarterback. Or have him just play outside linebacker instead of playing, he played interior, played outside, and just all those things. But that's going to be the narrative for Georgia. But I really feel it's hard for me to see that and the pads are not on, so you can't get the true look of what he can be yet.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just, I think we're not going to have. There's not going to be a problem with his instinctiveness. He's not going to be like pass flops in this town that played that defensive line spot. There's no Tavon in this kid. I think you got someone that's that's got so much athleticism for the size that he has that he's just gonna be a tough. It's tough to block somebody 6'5", 275 that can run like a safety. I don't care
Yeah.
what scheme you put. You can put a double. You can double. You can't really double. You can't double. It's hard to double team an outside linebacker. First of all, because
Yeah.
he's moving. He can move him to the other side. You can bunch him with. Well, you can play him on the same side as Josh. There's so many different ways that you can maneuver him that double teaming him is not really an option. And I think just him coming, I mean, you put him on the line and get him on the line of scrimmage and let him just shoot the gap and come at you. It's going to
Yeah.
be hard to get a guy to get his feet set, particularly if he comes on the outside and get his feet set to be in time to block this guy coming off the edge, And
Yeah.
I mean, I think I mean I was one of those guys. I mean I admit this. I mean I'm like, ooh, I mean why would you you know I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking like, man, I think this team needed more to get address their offensive line than getting a edge rusher that didn't make all SEC. I
Yeah.
mean that's basically what I said back in April. I think why gamble on a number one pick if you don't know what you're going to get from them? And based on what you saw from last year at Georgia, I felt that wasn't enough to put all
Yeah.
your cards on the table and draft this guy number one. But when you look at his background, I mean, this kid has been successful every level he's ever played at in two sports, not one sport, in two sports. He's never not been successful in anything, and then he got a father has done pushed him to perform his whole life.
Yep.
And you put that combination together, that's that looks like success to me.
Definitely. Yes, sir. So I can't wait to see them put on pass and him get on the field. So let's go say CJ Bethel went down. Yeah, CJ Bethel went down today. Of course, first thing I saw after he went down, I saw the report. Bring Blake Bortles back. Bring the boat back in. Bring him on back home. Bring him in. Let him be the backup. I say I'm not against that. You know, I like Blake. Blake's a likable guy. You know, and you know he bringing him in as a backup, of course. And Trevor doesn't have to worry about him breathing down his neck or nothing like that because we know Trevor's an unquestioned guy or whatever. So, and if anything happens, you know you got a guy who can at least has experience and can manage the game. You know, at least.
I don't think they should do that move.
You know
Nah. I roll with Jake Luton before I roll with Blake Bortles, man. It just, I mean,
okay.
why bring that type of attention to your young team? I mean, I think you've cut the cord. It's over. I mean, he served his time in Jacksonville, and I don't know. I just think that, man, let Blake have a good retirement and just. I think the one thing about the Jaguars franchise is that, man, it has to move forward. I I feel from a guy who's been covering this team since 2017 that the one thing that I think from the fan base, even through the organization, is that you got to move forward. You can't continue to talk about what should have happened and what didn't happen. It's too much reflection back to 2017. It's too, and at some things it's too much reflection back to the glory days a little bit. And I think for this franchise to move forward, you know, it has to you got to move the needle to the present. You know, you know we can't talk about Blake. We can't talk about Calais. We can't talk about Jalen.
Yeah.
They gone. They ain't coming
That's
back.
it.
They're not gonna walk
Yep.
through that locker room door and return
That's
unless they,
right.
you know, they gone. They forever gone. As far as that you know that you know, the most success that this team has had is 2017, and that's been 5 years ago.
Dude, I just calculated that in my head as soon as you said I've been covered since 2017. I was like, it's been 5 years. Holy crap, dog, man! That's depressing. It really is. It's really
Yeah.
depressing to think about that, man. So no, you're right. And rebrand, move forward. You know, and then yeah, Blake did retire. I forgot Blake retired. But yeah,
He'll
just
come back.
hey,
Hey, anybody give him a job, he'll come back. Ask Green Bay.
oh yeah, no problem. Absolutely. Same with Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick get off of the right situation. Fitzpatrick will retire and come back.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
But remember,
you right
you
on
got
back.
Jake Luton.
Yeah.
You got
You do
EJ
have Jake Luton.
or whatever. What is his name? You got EJ Perry.
Yeah.
Let me start talking about the team. But you know what, man? I just, you know, about the injury to CJ, man, it happened almost near the end of practice. He was rolling out, and he threw a pass that was intercepted in the end zone during the rain. And next thing, we were 100 yards down the field, waiting on interviews, and next thing we know, it was a crowd around a player on the field with a red jersey. The first thing you looked up, we wanted to make sure that wasn't Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
And, you know, it was C.J. Beathard on the ground. And the same thing with the defensive end. Defensive end.
Oh yeah, Smith.
Yeah, and
Yeah, Jordan Smith.
it wasn't a good day. It wasn't a good day for the rain. And Jordan, he just I didn't even really see the play. He looked like he was in pursuit, and then he just hit the ground. And I do know that's a knee injury. I don't know what the extent of it is, but yeah, you feel for this kid, man. This kid played 2 games. He's a fourth round pick. Played 2 games last season, and he didn't
Yeah.
play. I think he didn't play his first game until the last like December. And here's a player who went to UAB, and the Jaguars moved up I believe 9 spots to select him, and they, for whatever reason, he didn't get up playing. He didn't get in the rotational role, and it looked pretty bad, man. It's just we don't know a whole lot about the growing situation with Bethard, but we saw
Yeah.
that he couldn't put pressure on his right leg. He had to be helped off the field, and he was down on the ground for a long time. He was wincing in pain, and I was looking at that whole injury situation, and they were trying to stretch his leg, and he was literally screaming. He couldn't they couldn't stretch his leg. So I feel for that kid, man. I think he got there. I think he wanted bad, and
Hmm.
it's just a tough blow for a practice that's just these guys in helmets and shorts on an OTA practice, you know, a little more than a month before training camp, and it didn't look good. So,
Yeah. Gotcha. So, any other things in practice stood out? I know I've heard more about Laviska Chenault, him playing special teams and wanting to expand his role. And like you saying, he kind of sees the writing on the wall. So he's trying to do is make himself an asset and not a
yeah,
liability.
I actually talked to him in the rain, man, and it just you want this kid to do well. You want him
Yeah,
to.
he's a likable guy.
Yeah, he's real likable. He's real approachable. He understands what the situation is. In his words, he feels that he just haven't been given to the opportunity to be the player he was at Colorado. He just in his words, he feel that he's only been able to show snippets of himself, but in reality, he's got to. You can't drop passes. You got to
Got to
do a
catch
better
the ball.
job holding on the ball, and you do. I mean, he understand that. I feel that he's in a fight for a roster position, or he could get traded. And what he said, asked the question to him about why did you felt it was necessary to volunteer to be a punt returner. He said, "Well, the more you do, the more value you become to the team." So he understands it, man, and
Yeah.
it's no, it's no, it's no like ego. I'm this and I'm that. He a first round pick, but he understands what reality is. And this coaching staff, they didn't draft him. They didn't draft him. So he's just
Hmm.
another another piece on the roster that's trying to fight for a roster spot. But so far, but when I talk about Laviska, I just I wait for my evaluation until they put on the pads because every year he's been in Jacksonville, he's
Hmm.
always looked good when they got helmets and shorts on. So he's
Yeah.
been catching the ball. He's been he looks fast. He looks. I mean, I think Doug Peterson said today that he looks great. But when the when the tackling starts and the roster start pairing to who's first team, who's second team, who's third team, who's fourth team, and you got to go out there. And I think he's got to be a guy really that's got to show it in preseason. He's gonna get a lot of snaps in preseason, and he's got to get it done. I mean, one thing that helped him today is this Austin kid from Notre Dame. He didn't have a great practice today. He dropped a couple of passes thrown by Trevor, and Kevin Austin he's got to pick it up, man. You can't we only get to see these guys practice once a week, but we was out there last week and he ran a slant route across the middle, and that ball was right there in the numbers, and it bounced off his hands, and it's almost like the identical play today. Same thing, ball bounced off his hands, but they were practicing in the rain today. But I tell you something else though, man. This Etienne, he's looking good, bro.
I've been hearing that. I saw the video of James Robinson working out and him jogging and running. That's a good sign. But from what I hear about ETN, I see somebody put on Twitter. They say ETN might run James Robinson out of Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'm telling you, boy. I think this kid, whatever that is, Frank, it ain't an issue no more. Because he got some moves, boy. I mean, I'll be honest, boy. He looks big time. Even from the way that he get the ball in the handoff and his acceleration through the line, it's like 1, 2, 3, and he's 5 yards downfield, and he's cutting and moving. And it's just like, man, it's just like you see a cloud of burst, and then next thing he's out running the coverage.
Yeah.
Then they got him lining up wide. I saw a couple of plays where he's lined up literally like a wide receiver. Another guy that's standing out, man, this Evan Ingram, the tight end, doesn't look like a tight end. He looks like a wide receiver. And I tell you, like Trevor and Evan is getting a good, look like they're getting a rhythm together going where when Trevor has to bail out or something, like they get that ball out quick, Evan finds a way to get open, And I say this, man, they list him at 240, but he's fast as a receiver. No question about it. And he gets open. And there was a couple of catches he made, and Shaq Griffin couldn't do it. But let me tell you, Shaq Griffin got an interception today, which is a good thing.
Yes.
Trevor threw a pass. It was underthrown. He made a nice cut, tracked the ball down, caught it right before he went out of bounds, and he grabbed it. It was it was like a breadbasket catch. And we know about his reputation last year that he dropped so many INTs, but I thought that was one of the signature plays of the day, where he ran under that underthrown ball and got it. Another thing is, man, it's just like this defense. My only issue with the Jags, and I keep saying this, I'm gonna say it because it's true. The only question mark I got for the Jags is the offensive line, and
it's still a question mark.
The defensive front, I know they're not in pads, but a lot of times, Trevor steps back, man, it's pressure coming from everywhere. I go back on the line today. I saw Jawan Taylor working with the ones. Cam Robinson was back, but Jawan was working at both tackle spots. He was working at left tackle with the number 2 offensive team, and he was working at his regular spot. But he was working with the starters at right tackle, and then Walker Little was also working him at left tackle, and he was at right, but he was a second team right tackle. But I think all that is a prelude. I think the real battle between those two is going to be in training camp. And obviously, it was a good sight to see Cam because we hadn't seen him in 2 weeks, but he was out there today, along with Shaq. Shaq wasn't there last week because of travel issues, but and I don't know what's the situation with Darius Williams. He's got an injury, but the Jaguars are not saying what it is. And Malcolm Brown is not working with the team, but he's rehabbing. And we know he has a toe issue. So he should be fine when training camp starts. But I have no idea why Darius Williams, the cornerback from the Rams, who they
Rams, yeah.
signed in free agency, has got some type of injury that he's rehabbing. But he has not been out there for the 3 weeks we've been watching OTAs.
Okay. So hey, so pretty much the same. With defense looks really good, much improved. Look like they're going to have a solid unit. The tight ends are much improved. Wide receiver. You got Christian Kirk. You got gonna have competition for those the fourth and fifth receiver spots. There's a lot of competition. But the offensive line, once again, yeah,
I got concerns, man. I don't know. I think they have improved. I mean, those linebackers. When you watch this team this upcoming season, those linebackers gonna stand out. That to me, that's probably as a position group, they're probably the biggest upgrade that this team has made at those linebacker spots. They
yeah,
Evan Lord, Muma. It doesn't matter who's in there. I mean, Aluaquan and all those guys. They are there. They're not going to make tackles 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. They're going to make tackles at the line of. They're going to make point of contact, and they're going to be right at the line of scrimmage if they don't throw a running back or whoever for lost yardage. But to
yeah,
me, and OTAs, that group right now, they look as good as. I mean, they almost look like they're ready for the season. To be honest, they're in position. They don't like they already picked up this system that they know where to go at. It's like Caldwell. I mean, the Mike Caldwell, the defensive coordinator, got a lot of packages in that defense, and they had drills today where they were calling out these packages, and he was watching who's lining up where they need to be at. They had separate drills, and Devin Lloyd and Muma, they every time that they snapped that ball and in front of Coach Caldwell, they were in position to be where they're supposed to be at. So whatever going on with film work, and I think that's the biggest difference when I look at this OTA under Coach Peterson and looking at what happened last year with Urban Meyer,
yeah,
is that the learning phase is not on the field. The part that they're doing right now on the field is just exercising what they've already been taught when they're in those meeting rooms, and they're just going out and executing it. But they're not making mistakes, man. There's no guy lining up wrong or a guy, in a coverage bust and all that. We don't see any of that. We haven't seen that in 3 weeks. So what the difference I think is in this coaching staff, they're getting a lot done in the classroom.
yeah. What up, cuz? But yeah, it is different. I'm excited about the draft class as a whole. I want to see Fortner, and see because most likely he's probably going to start at center, from what I've
I
been
don't
hearing.
know, Brandon. I tell
Oh,
you
you
what,
don't know?
Tyler
From what I
Shatton,
heard.
Tyler
Oh,
Shatton,
Shatley's okay.
Shatton got all the number one. I watched that. He got all the number one reps in
Okay,
practice today. Not last week, but today he got all the number one starting
okay,
reps at center. And they got who is that? They had Ben Barch was at the he was at left guard. And he got all the snaps at left guard.
okay,
I don't know what they're gonna do with Will Richardson. And Will look like he done lost some weight. Because I think if they
okay,
do a swing tackle, it's going to be the swing tackle is going to be whoever lose out of the competition between Walker Little and Jawan Taylor, because they're working both of them at both tackle spots. So I saw Will Richardson playing some at guard, but everything he worked on was backup. So, but I don't know, man. If there's any question about this team, it's obviously a question at safety because Dewey is still playing free safety. Jenkins,
Ah,
but Jenkins is rehabbing. He's working, but he's not doing any 11-on-11 work.
yeah.
But I like what I see, and Cisco looks good. I say this. I think the coaching staff has made it a point right now in OTAs that when they line up against Washington in the opening game, Cisco is going to be a starter. Not at free safety. He'll be a starter at strong safety, but he has not worked anywhere in any other unit other than number ones. And then they have him and Mr. Dewey as the two safeties.
Okay.
And let me say, let me say this about Mr. Dewey, man. Let me say this. I appreciate a guy who got hustle.
Yes.
I appreciate a guy who can make the calls.
Uh-huh.
But I also talked to one of the reporters on the field today, and I meant what I said because it doesn't happen. If they start Dewey, the teams are gonna scheme Wingert. It's no
Yes.
question. He's the weak. If he starts, he is the weak length of this defense, and they're gonna do just what the Rams, Colts,
Titans schemed him up nice.
they're gonna put the tight end out, and they're gonna run
Bengals.
that right there. The Bengals, but
Uzama.
particularly the Bengals, because it happened like 3 times for like
Yes.
plays over 30 yards. That all they're gonna do is string that tight end. They're gonna tell the tight end run along, draw coverage on number 42, and he's gonna take you, and you got to beat him. And that's exactly what they're gonna do. They've been doing that. If you go back to the 2019 season, they played Minnesota at Minnesota, and Minnesota needed a touchdown to win the game. They didn't get a touchdown on the play that they schemed them, but they went for about 50 yards, and they got down to like the 14. And the next play they scored. But that's all they did. When you are a player like Wingert, every playbook in the NFL is this: run your tight ends at him. Let him pick you up, and he cannot cover you. He can hit you, but he can't cover you. And even if he covers you, you splitting the field, so you taking him out of the play. You know, he's out. He's out of the play, which leaves the middle of the field open. So you take him straight, and if he's open, if that tight end open, we're gonna get you the ball because he can't cover you. But even if he covers you, 40% of the field is open. So you can't, as much as he is as a hard worker, which he is, as much as he is as you know, a guy who can pick up the signal. He's very smart. He's got a good football IQ, but he's not going to help you win. And that's what the way I feel with Mike Caldwell as the defensive coordinator, he's not going to allow that to happen. He's not going to allow one guy to be a detriment to the rest of the 10 guys on the field. I think he'll be a guy that could come in on some special packages that, especially against a run-oriented team. But there's no way in the world, I say there's no way in hell that Dewey is going to start this year.
Yeah, because dude, every time we've and this issue with covering tight ends precedes him, but it's because of safeties. The safeties and not being able to cover them. The last safety that we had that could cover tight ends and was very great at it was Gibson.
Yep.
Yeah. Tayshaun Gibson covered tight ends and he was very good at it. Ever since he's been gone, tight ends eat. And I mean, they eat well in the middle of the field on us. And Jim Rat, high IQ, all of that, but he lacks the athleticism to cover guys down the field. He just does. He can hit you.
Yeah. I don't think he can move out. I feel that once Jenkins get fully healed, then Jenkins will be the free safety. And I don't think Cisco coming out of the game or coming out from the starting unit as a strong safety. I actually think Caldwell like him because every practice that we've seen for 3 weeks, he's been at that spot and he's been working with the ones. And he's not flip flopping from free safety to strong safety. So I don't. They're not investing. When you invest the money they invested in Rayshon Jenkins, even if he didn't play well, they still invested money in him. That there's no way that they're going to have a guy like Wingard and put Jenkins on the bench who, with that type of investment. So, and they can't really trade him. I don't think they would trade Jenkins. There's a possibility that they could, but I don't think so. And I think you got a good special teams player in Wingard. I think he'll help you on special teams, and if you need a good goal line red zone defense, a guy, then he's your guy. But you can't have that kid in the game. It's third and long, and the opposing team need a first down, and it's 14 yards downfield, and he's in the game. And I don't think this coaching staff is going to allow it. So that's my opinion.
Well, hey, I'm excited for the what we got the. I know this is voluntary OTAs, and then after that they'll have mandatory. And then we'll be talking about when does training camp start?
July the 24th, and then they play that first preseason game in the first week of August. So. They played a preseason game August the 4th. But, yeah, they got the mandatory minicamp is 13th, 14th, and the 15th. So that's next week. So this is the final, I think Thursday is their final OTA practice. And they're going to give them a couple of days off. And then you got the mandatory minicamp on the 13th. What is that, Monday or Tuesday? I think
it's 13th. Oh, he hit the button. So 13th. Yeah, that's on a Monday. Hopefully he can come back. But let's see. So OTA. So mandatory OTA start on the 13th. Training camp starts on the 24th. Man, I'm waiting for him to come back because I got to ask him about Doug Peterson, which Doug Peterson today praised the players for their participation in the OTAs and the players who were present. So we didn't have no holdouts or anything like that. No issues with that. So I do not know where he went and what happened. But, man, we're about to wrap it up anyway. We're going to get up out of here. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on all my social media. Let's see. Ernesto say 9-7 will be our record. Yeah, I said that the floor is 6 wins. I said the floor will be 6 wins, Ness, and I think our ceiling is 8 or 9 wins. Nesco said he said our record will be 9-7.
Hey man, I'm not gonna. Hey, I think Jacksonville is gonna make a lot of people happy. I'm very high on that defense, man, and I said at one point 2 weeks ago that I think the most wins they could get was 7.
Mm-hmm.
But those linebackers, man, they're going to be something else, man. This Devin Lloyd is a real deal. I mean, it's going to be – it's not going to be –
That's what I'm most excited to see.
Yeah, there's no broken coverages and all that stuff. And he can tackle. And he plays like a strong safety. And I think that and this Aluakon, I believe that's how I pronounce his name correctly. Mm-hmm. But this guy – is a stud. And I don't give praises if they ain't deserving of it. But when this guy scraped to get to the tackle, if the tackle is on the opposite side, he's at middle linebacker and he's got to get down the right side to make the play with the running back coming on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna knock over anybody standing in his way. I done seen it. If the defensive tackle get pushed back in his path, he's knocking those guys out the way just to make the tackle. and they haven't had a linebacker like that. Believe me.
Yeah.
I mean, they might. I mean, I'm starting to believe that this defense could literally be a top 10 defense, and I'm talking about stopping the run, getting a pass rush in all three levels, and and coverage and pass defense, getting a pass rush and run defense. And I think they have improved that much. And injuries, we can't predict injuries, but
Yeah.
I think that they have significantly improved in all three phases of that defensive front, in that on that defensive line. You know,
Yeah.
and if you that their front seven, it's like you got packages, so you putting in guys fresh that can that can get in, and if you got guys that's not productive, then you take them out, and you're not going to have a drop off. But believe me, man, when you got Josh Allen on one side and Travon Walker on the other, and then you got a kid like Devin Lloyd who's got the athleticism to cover anything in the flat, and he can cover. He's fast enough to cover a receiver to be in the slot.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got that kind of talent, and then you got a defensive coordinator who's, I mean, he's a tactician type of defensive coordinator, man. He's everywhere on the field. He sees everything, and he's always coaching. When you got a guy like that, when he's not yelling, he's coaching. He sees things before they happen, and if he sees that you're not in position, he's telling you where to be. And then a lot of times when you look at it after he done told somebody, he's not telling that same player four times where to line up at. But
Yeah.
like I say, I think the difference in this coaching staff from last year is they're getting a lot done in the classroom, and it's showing on the practice field. And if you're talking about OTAs, I would think that they have already put in most of their packages. They probably have some more to add in training camp a little bit, but they're put in most of their packages in now. And these guys are running around the field. It's not a complicated defense. So you ain't got guys trying to figure it out and thinking too
Yeah.
much or not getting themselves in the. I've even seen Chason. Chason look different. He looks like he's more assertive as a player because his responsibilities is not as much as it was in the packages that they ran last year. And
Yeah.
that's what you have to do. You have, in order to get the best out of the talent, when you got as much transition this team has had, then you just make things simple. If it's your job to get to the quarterback, if it's your job to cover your area, then those are the two things that you do. And then one thing about this coaching staff is that they are particular about assignments. I mean, they go over and over it. I mean, it was a couple of times in
Yeah.
practice today where they went over packages, and the player was coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out, but they did about 12 times. It was the linebackers, it was just the front seven getting in coverage without. It wasn't going against the offense or anything like that. But he wanted to see everybody moving in the right way they need to be in that package. And I think this defense is gonna be one hell of a unit, man. And it's a lot of people could say, oh yeah, remember, but they went 3-14 last year. But if you look at their defense, this is a totally revamped defense. This ain't, a lot of these guys are the main guys on the defense are new.
Yeah, and let's not forget, even with them, they made changes, and a lot of guys are new. Last year, that defense flashed brilliance from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
It did. Yo, you got to. How do you explain the Bills game? They flashed brilliance from time to time. They had certain stretches where the defense played very, very good football. So I think now you can be more consistent, because one of the issues was last year is that they played good in spurts because after you got past the first 11, what was there?
Yeah.
After you get past the first 11. So even if, like, I've had teams when I coached at Terry Parker, we had a great starting 22. We felt like we had a starting 22 that could have played with most teams in the city. We didn't have anything after that. And so all teams had to do was get us in the third quarter, and it was a wrap. Because that's when your depth chart starts to show as the game goes along. You start substituting players, and backups come in, giving guys rest. You had 22 players, but we had probably 5 or 6 going both ways. Third quarter, it was a wrap, man.
Yeah, you know, the questions that I like, who's going to play nickel cornerback? You know,
That's the last question I was going to ask before we get out of here. What is going on with this nickel spot with the corners? Because Darius Williams supposedly isn't going to be playing nickel, and Tyson supposedly wasn't playing, isn't a nickel cornerback, and has never played it or like that, or hasn't played it consistently or anything like that. And we know Shaq Griffin is going to play on the outside. So who's playing nickel? I would love to know that.
I don't know. Well, today it was Trey Herndon, and he played a little better than he did the week before. He didn't get burnt deep. He didn't get beat deep, but I don't know, man. I mean, that's gone. But one thing that Peterson said, but you know, it's a situation that they can alternate it a lot, which, you know, if you talking about alternating, and maybe Rudy Ford is in that mix too. But
yeah,
you know, it's a good problem to have. You know, and another guy that's getting a lot of work, even though that Darius Williams is not practicing, was Chris Clayborgs. He actually was working with the ones on the opposite side of Shaq Griffin today. And Tyson,
and I've heard that.
I didn't see Tyson at practice today, so that might have had something to do with it. But Tyson has looked good for the last 2 weeks prior coming into today. But Chris Claiborne's ain't bad. He's got speed, you know. But you know, as I said earlier, man, it's hard covering a guy like Evan Ingram. I mean, it's hard to I mean, I mean, he's a great route runner. I mean, he's for you know, he doesn't look like a tight end at all, but he runs routes like receivers, like a wide receiver, like an outside receiver, and I mean, he's got deceptive speed of whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but he gets open a lot.
Yeah, I think the lowest catches he's had in his career would be the franchise record here in Jacksonville for tight ends. So that tells me all I need to know.
Well, I think the 43, I think you get more catches than 43 catches. He's fast, man. I mean, we used to talk about like Dan Arnold, and I mean, this guy is a lot faster than Dan Arnold.
Yeah, Dan had good speed for a tight end. Evan would have good speed for a wide receiver. You know, he's always been like that ever since Ole Miss. But his issue is injuries. He'll have just nagging injuries here and there that will hamper his play. But hey, the guy can play. And from time to time, you know, he went through some drop seasons, especially early in his career with the New York Giants. So I'm just excited to see training camp start, preseason, see how this all turns out.
And I think they're moving in a good direction, man. Like Ernesto said, 9. I said at this point I couldn't rule 9 out. I really feel, you know, and you know me, man. I'm a critic. I mean, I'm not gonna shade. You know, I'm not talking smoke because I done seen losing a lot of losing, man. But I like this defense. I know a good defense when I see one. I think the offense got to get. You know, I'm concerned about the offensive line. Obviously, I would love if this team would have got another outside receiver. Jay Jones made some catches today. I will say that, but if anything that I've been most impressed with, the defense. I think this can be a top 10 defense, man, and it's only gonna get better. So.
Yeah. Heard somebody say that the previous regime preached speed. These guys are actually fast.
Yeah, they fast. I mean, they fast in a way that everybody reacts, and those linebackers, Devin Lloyd see a play on the left side of the field, he's getting over to the left side. He's not watching, and that Allure Khan, I mean, he's like it looked like he's in a race to be the first one to get to make the contact on anybody running the ball, trying to get to the outside corner. If you got a linebacker like that, if you got a linebacker that made 196 tackles, and he looks to be greedy, so he want to make tackles. But I've seen this guy for the last 2 weeks, man. It's like when he's beating, like when he's scraping to get to the outside, he's like he's not even a foot behind the defensive lineman when he's scraping. He's not losing yardage. Like Miles Jack used to play linebacker where he would scrape. But when he scraped, he was like 7 yards back. So when he made the tackle, it was like a 7-yard gain. But when this Khan scrapes to get to the outside from that middle linebacker spot, he can almost touch the defensive lineman. He's coming across that close. And anybody if a defensive lineman get knocked back in his path, he's running into something. He's knocking that defensive lineman out the way to make that tackle. And they haven't had a linebacker like that since Puz, man. That's a real linebacker. That ain't a guy just looking to get stats. That's a guy that's looking to knock somebody's head off, and he want to get there the quicker. He want to be the first one there.
Hey, there it is, man. But we're going to leave it right there. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Follow Mr. Reid on Twitter, Jacksonville.com for Orleans Times-Picayune. We will be back with more videos. I'll be back with more videos, and we'll be back doing the live stream. Try to later on sometime this week. We'll work it out. But, man, make sure y'all, like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on social media. Do all of that. What was the last one? I think Julie said she with it. She's a Washington fan. She posted Jacksonville. I appreciate that, man. But until next time, we are out of here. Peace out, y'all.